Chapter 519. Li Fan saw that something was wrong and hurriedly followed. Sister Zhao stood some distance away, her expression grave as she inspected the state of the cultivator before her. Cough, cough, this disciple of the Grand Tao sect was stuck at the nascent soul stage, but at this moment, he looked no different from a dying mortal, his eyes hollow, his consciousness muddled, his breath as faint as a wisp. He coughed violently from time to time, as if he were about to cough his lungs out. A trace of deathly grayness was faintly visible on his face, and his body appeared weak beyond belief, completely unfit for someone at the nascent soul stage. Li Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Just a moment ago, this cultivator didn't seem this severe. In the short time it took to find Sister Zhao, the situation had worsened dramatically. Could it be some kind of evil curse? Li Fan squinted, trying to analyze the situation. Cough, Tao child. In his confusion, the cultivator recognized the two standing before him. He instinctively struggled to stand and offer a salute. No need, if you're feeling unwell, don't move. Rest well. Sister Zhao stopped him, speaking gently. This disciple of the Grand Tao sect had never seen Sister Zhao display such warmth and gentleness in his entire life. For a moment, his face regained a slight glow, as if he had experienced a brief resurgence of life. He stared at Sister Zhao, filled with infatuation, as if his soul had been captivated. After you descended the mountain, where did you go? What encounters did you have, and whom did you meet? Sister Zhao asked again. Despite his failing body, the cultivator, coughing and gasping for breath, struggled to recount everything to her in meticulous detail. Gradually, his breath weakened. But seeing Sister Zhao's eager expression, he persevered, speaking in halting, broken sentences. Finally, when he uttered his last word, his breath ceased abruptly. Yet his eyes remained open, staring at Sister Zhao with an unyielding, reluctant gaze. Let's go. Sister Zhao quickly grabbed Li Fan and swiftly left the scene. At the same time, she handed him a purple gold pill, instructing him to swallow it. The creation purple gold pill. Li Fan was shocked. This pill was a secret treasure of the Grand Tao sect, usually crafted only by longevity realm experts. No matter how severe the injury, as long as one wasn't already dead, consuming it would instantly restore the body to its peak. It was practically a second life. It was incredibly rare, and the sect had very few in reserve. Yet now, Sister Zhao had unhesitatingly given him one. Li Fan immediately realized the gravity of the situation and swallowed the creation purple gold pill. Don't waste it. Wrap it in your spiritual energy and slowly absorb its medicinal power, Sister Zhao instructed while simultaneously casting spells, constructing layers of protective barriers around them. Could the cause of that disciple's death still be contagious? What kind of curse is this powerful? Is it targeting our Grand Tao sect? Li Fan couldn't help but feel alarmed. Rather than a curse, it seems more like a disease. A deadly disease that even cultivators cannot escape or avoid. Sister Zhao's expression was more serious than ever. Even during the great upheaval when the laws of heaven could no longer be practiced, she hadn't been this worried. Its target is not just our Grand Tao sect but the extermination of all cultivators in the world. This must be reported immediately. Li Fan was stunned. Could this be another backlash from the heavens? Damn it, is the treacherous heavens really trying to wipe us out completely? Cough, cough, as the two flew toward the sect's main hall, Sister Zhao's face suddenly turned an eerie pale color. Then, uncontrollably, she began to cough softly. But soon, a purple golden light appeared, suppressing the paleness. The coughing stopped, and her complexion regained its rosy hue. How could it manifest so quickly? Sister, you're at the Tao integration stage. Li Fan's heart filled with a terrifying disbelief. If even a Tao integration expert was affected, what hope was there for him, a mere soul transformation cultivator? Not daring to wait for the symptoms to show, he quickly circulated a sliver of the creation purple gold pill's medicinal power from his dantian, spreading it throughout his body as a defense. Sure enough, not long after he finished, a wave of exhaustion swept over him. It felt as if he had battled Sister Zhao for 7 days and nights straight, his entire body aching as though his bones were about to break. His throat burned as if cut by a blade, but his body, like a drowning mortal, desperately yearned for air, struggling to surface and take a deep breath. Fortunately, the creation purple gold pill's reputation was well deserved. As its power circulated, the abnormal symptoms disappeared in an instant. Hiss, this disease is truly ferocious. It felt as though he had brushed against death, and Li Fan looked at Sister Zhao with lingering fear. Thankfully, I had your pill. Otherwise, I'd have ended up just like that junior brother. Don't let your guard down. This only suppressed the symptoms temporarily. The true culprit causing all this still remains inside us, Sister Zhao reminded him at the right moment. As if to validate her words, she quickly coughed again, though softly. Even though the creation purple gold pill soon neutralized the illness, it made Li Fan's heart sink further. They had miraculous pills to protect them, yet they still couldn't shake off this mysterious disease. How much worse would it be for the ordinary disciples of the Grand Tao sect, not to mention unaffiliated cultivators? It was unimaginable. The two fought off the illness as they swiftly arrived at the sect's main hall. There, the sect leader, Ji Changxi, having received Sister Zhao's message in advance, had already gathered all the elders. Though Sister Zhao had done her best to explain the severity of the disease, Ji Changxi and the elders gave it proper attention. But it wasn't enough. In their eyes, although Sister Zhao had recently broken through to the Tao integration stage thanks to a new cultivation method, she couldn't be compared to them, who had been at the Tao integration stage for centuries. They possessed countless secret techniques and methods. What could harm this young Tao child might not necessarily harm them. Besides, they believed they were fully prepared. The space within the main hall was surrounded by numerous restrictive spells, layers upon layers of sealing barriers. They had even activated the profound abyss Tao breakthrough formation, which seemed close but was actually separated by several worlds. It was absolutely secure, and they were completely confident. You too, stop suppressing the disease and each release a drop of your own blood, Ji Changxi instructed. Li Fan and Sister Zhao obeyed. With soft coughs, 2 droplets of blood, each exuding an ominous aura, floated before the crowd. Everyone observed from a distance, and the hall fell into silence. Suddenly, a fleeting, almost imperceptible look of surprise crossed Ji Changxi's face. Chapter 520. Without knowing exactly what he had discovered, he suddenly took out Senior Sister Zhao's drop of blood from the isolated space and began to carefully examine it nearby. Master, you, Senior Sister Zhao couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. No worries. A layer of black light emerged from around Ji Changxi's body, enveloping him entirely. In that instant, Senior Sister Zhao recognized it. It was the unique divine light exhibited by the magical power, the Tao is mine alone, from the heaven-slaying Tao scripture. All foreign energies, in the presence of this magical power, would be transformed into something the practitioner could control. She had also briefly cultivated this divine technique. But now, lowering her head, Senior Sister Zhao carefully concealed the ambition and dissatisfaction in her eyes. Fortunately, all the senior members of the Grand Tao sect present had their attention focused entirely on the continuously swirling drop of blood in Ji Changxi's hand. It seemed no one had noticed her anomaly. Black light surged endlessly from Master Ji's body, surrounding the blood drop. While the black light churned, the blood drop was gradually being consumed. However, before Ji Changxi could analyze what was happening, a sharp cough suddenly echoed beside him. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. And this was only the beginning. As if triggered by a chain reaction, soon after, uncontrollable coughing echoed throughout the grand hall of the sect, where the elites were gathered. How is this possible? After experiencing the severity of this unknown illness firsthand, the elders' expressions changed dramatically. Interesting, interesting. Wait, this seems to be. However, those present are after all the elites of the elites who have survived from the Xuanwang realm for thousands of years. Very quickly, each of them used their own methods to suppress the abnormalities in their bodies. Some even began to study it on the spot with great interest. Seeing the elders respond in this manner, Li Fan and Senior Sister Zhao exchanged a glance, feeling slightly relieved. The contagiousness and virulence are extremely terrifying. This is something rarely seen in my life. I fear that even the absolute immortal edict released during the dying struggle of the Xuantian sect might not compare. An elderly man with white hair said slowly. Li Fan only knew that this person was named Mo Juran, one of the elders of the Grand Tao sect and an expert in pharmacology. He usually kept a low profile and refrained from sect affairs. However, it was said that the pills he refined were of the highest quality. Even the creation purple gold pill Li Fan had taken before, Mo Juran could produce a flawed version with 70 to 80% efficacy despite only being at the Tao integration stage. Once Mo Juran spoke, the other elders immediately began to voice their opinions. This illness, once contracted, grows autonomously within a cultivator's body. Mild symptoms are manageable, but if not suppressed in time, it will worsen into a severe condition. At best, one's cultivation will regress, at worst, they will perish, body and soul. As soon as this was said, the expressions of everyone present became grim. I just tried over 10 different methods, and while I could quickly eliminate the symptoms caused by the disease, the source of this affliction seems to linger, still hidden deep within the body. What is its host medium? Strange, truly strange. We elders have strong cultivation and can easily suppress the symptoms, but what about the disciples? Without medicinal aid, they might. First, we had the law of incompatible cultivation, and now we face this bizarre disease. The immortal path is severed, the future bleak. Perhaps it's time to retreat, perhaps it's time to retreat. Lay Fancy, stop your nonsense in front of the juniors. The grand sect hall, usually the most solemn place, now resembled a noisy marketplace. Li Fan and senior sister Zhao kept their heads down, not daring to show any abnormal expressions. Everyone. At this moment, a voice rang out, drawing everyone's attention. The hall fell silent instantly. I have an idea, said Ji Changxi, the Grand Dao Sect Master, with a serious expression. Some of you may have already realized it. The reason this strange disease is so hard to defend against is that it is one of the newly born laws of heaven and earth. The so-called law of nature. But unlike the law of incompatible cultivation, this was caused by a cultivator. The words thundered through the hall, and Li Fan and senior sister Zhao immediately looked up, shocked, staring at Ji Chengxi as waves of disbelief surged in their minds. A cultivator did this, defying the laws of heaven and earth. Since the immortal ancestor achieved longevity, where only the new laws of heaven could be cultivated, no one had ever defied heaven's will to break through to the longevity realm. The 10 great immortal sects had countless heroes. But despite decades of attempts, no so-called genius had succeeded. This showed just how difficult it was to defy heaven's will. However, according to Sect Master Ji, a cultivator had silently succeeded in attaining longevity. Who was it? The 10 great immortal sects, though full of intrigue, still maintained communication. If someone had broken through to the longevity realm, even if there was no prior announcement, once the breakthrough was made, news would have been shared with the other sects. Moreover, this new longevity immortal seemed to defy conventional law that the cultivators are immune to diseases. This kind of action, which essentially made enemies of all cultivators, could not possibly have come from one of the 10 great immortal sects. Who would dig their own grave? So, who was this person that had not only reached the longevity realm but also sought to eradicate all cultivators? This was an outright provocation and declaration of war. It wasn't just Li Fan and senior sister Zhao who were stunned. All the elders and Ji Chengxi in the hall had expressions filled with restrained killing intent. Investigate. We must find out the truth. Even if this person is a longevity immortal heavenly sovereign, such actions cannot be forgiven. I will immediately meet with the other heads of the immortal sects and pass on this information. As for the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, Ji Chengxi paused. We'll send someone to inform them as well and gauge their response. The strongest forces in the Xuanwang realm must unite. I refuse to believe that this individual can continue to roam free. While tracking down the culprit, we must also take precautions against this illness. From today on, the medicine hall will operate at full capacity, ensuring the Grand Dao sect has an adequate supply of medicinal pills. As for those outside the Grand Dao sect, Ji Chengxi hesitated for a moment. After numerous calamities, our Grand Dao sect has suffered greatly. We may barely have the strength to protect ourselves. So, let them fend for themselves. The elders all nodded slightly in agreement with the sect master's decision. I will also try to find a way to alleviate the symptoms of this strange disease, Mo Juran said, his eyes gleaming with desire. If I can completely neutralize its harm to cultivators, it would mean defying the laws of heaven once again. In that case, perhaps, longevity might still be within my reach. He muttered to himself. Chapter 531. Li Fan's expression remained unchanged as he took a slow sip of tea and glanced at Zhou Kebao. You're not expecting me to step in and buy back the materials you've embezzled, are you? Although I'm relatively well off, my contributions didn't just fall from the sky. Besides, these materials are only useful for building the immortal city and nothing else. Zhou Kebao quickly shook his head. I wouldn't dare be so ungrateful. He cautiously glanced at Li Fan, bowing slightly in a flattering manner. In fact, I came to you with the intention of resolving things peacefully. Suddenly, Li Fan slammed his teacup down on the table with a loud bang, instantly stopping Zhou Kebao in his tracks, his body stiffening. Li Fan's expression turned cold, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Resolve things peacefully. That's not what you had in mind before. Embezzling so many materials, especially after I pledged a military order. You're pushing me, Li Fan, to the brink of death. Zhou Kebao waved his hands in a panic, trembling as he explained, that was never our intention. I swear, from start to finish, all we wanted was some financial gain. Li Fan remained indifferent, responding calmly, things have come this far, and I won't argue with you any further. Upon hearing this, Zhou Kebao's face lit up with disbelief. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Li Fan continued, however, once the Kongyuan Immortal City is completed, everything will need to be reported to the higher-ups. Not a single detail will be left out. After all, completing the Immortal City without wasting a single bit of material is proof of my exceptional ability, isn't it? This accomplishment should be broadcasted far and wide. If every city lord in the world were as efficient as I am, wouldn't the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's conquest of the Five Elders Association be just around the corner? What do you think, Taoist Zhou? Li Fan boasted without shame. Hey, you're joking, Taoist, Zhou Kebao replied, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, fully understanding the threat behind Li Fan's words. If you have any demands, just say them. We'll meet them, but please don't escalate the situation. Zhou Kebao thumped his chest in assurance. Don't focus on what I want, focus on what you have. Li Fan stepped forward and patted Zhou Kebao's shoulder. Contribution points. Do you think I lack those? Li Fan's face was filled with pride. My reputation for deduction techniques is known throughout the world. Wealth accumulates upon wealth, and I can easily handle simple matters. Contribution points are nothing but a string of numbers to me. Upon hearing this, Zhou Kebao's body shook slightly. Besides, once the Kongyuan Immortal City is completed, the rewards from above will be significant. At that point, as a major figure, my level of authority will soar. With contribution points and authority, what in this world will be beyond my grasp? And what do you think you can offer me to win me over? Li Fan's eyes gleamed, locking onto Zhou Kebao. Zhou Kebao felt the pressure of Li Fan's gaze, realizing that what Li Fan said made complete sense. His mind was a whirl of confusion, and for a moment, he couldn't come up with a suitable answer. Think it over and come back to me. I still have official matters to attend to, so I'll have to ask you to leave, Li Fan said coldly, issuing his order to depart. Zhou Kebao, with a troubled expression, retreated. Li Fan's meaning was clear. He was willing to overlook their meddling, but they needed to offer enough compensation of value. The demand for no specific request is the hardest to fulfill. Zhou Kebao sighed softly. He glanced back at the room where Li Fan was staying. In the short time since he had left, 7 or 8 different cultivators had already come and gone, each with a solemn expression. His influence is already solidified. There's no point in opposing him. If that's the case, we might as well use this opportunity to turn foes into allies. From what I can tell, he's not the kind of person who holds grudges as long as he gets what he wants. With his mind made up, Zhou Kebao quickly returned to discuss things with his associates. 5 days later, Zhou Kebao appeared before Li Fan again, exuding confidence. Taoist, take a look at this. He pointed into the air, and a miniature floating city appeared before them. What does this mean? Li Fan looked at it for a moment but couldn't discern its significance. Without revealing anything, he asked. Seeing Li Fan's reaction, Zhou Kebao grew even more confident, flashing a mysterious smile. It's a cave residence, modeled exactly after the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's floating Immortal City, only better. I wonder if this interests you, Taoist? Zhou Kebao asked in a low voice. Li Fan's eyes narrowed as he turned his gaze back to the floating model, deep in thought, before inhaling sharply. The materials you embezzled, you took more than double what was allocated to me. That's quite bold, isn't it? Zhou Kebao quickly replied, hey, you've misunderstood, Taoist. Though we did skim off quite a bit while scheming against you, it still wasn't nearly enough to build an entire floating city. In truth, the materials we used were left over from various repair and renovation projects in different immortal cities across the states. You know, Taoist Li, that when the 10,000 Immortal Alliance allocates materials for projects, they take all sorts of contingencies into account, so the budgets are usually quite generous. Since we've been doing this for so long, we've become proficient at minimizing actual losses. Thus, there's always a surplus of materials, and naturally, we couldn't return the leftovers, so they ended up in our possession. Joe Kebao smiled faintly and stopped speaking, leaving the rest unsaid. After so many years, we've accumulated these materials. Instead of letting them sit and collect dust in storage, why not put them to use and resolve our misunderstandings with you? Using public resources for private purposes, turning an immortal city into a cave residence, hey, I can assure you that even in our 10,000 Immortal Alliance, this kind of thing is rare. Li Fan stared intently at the constantly rotating image of the immortal city, clearly tempted. Seeing this, Joe Kebao redoubled his efforts to promote the idea. This immortal city cave residence will have facilities identical to any regular immortal city, except it won't be connected to the 10,000 Immortal Alliance headquarters. And if you find it too ostentatious, we can install a concealment function. Structures like the administration hall and martial arts arena can be hidden from view and only revealed when needed. We'll also leave plenty of room for future modifications to the cave residence. If you ever want to reinforce the protective arrays or restrictions, it'll be no problem at all. Of course, if you're willing to part with some contribution points, we can handle everything for you. And if you're generous enough, we could even discuss installing a long-distance teleportation formation or a virtual mustard seed miniature formation. A cave residence that you can carry with you, equipped with teleportation functions, capable of both attack and defense. Are you satisfied, Taoist? Joe Kebao asked, enticing him further. Li Fan responded with a hearty laugh. Chapter 521. Ever since the conclusion of the high-level meeting at the Grand Tao sect, this mysterious plague has spread throughout the mountain gates at an alarming rate. Even though an official decree was issued early on, ordering the disciples to be vigilant, practice self-isolation, and avoid contact with others, the situation spiraled out of control. Various pills were distributed to the disciples as needed, but none of the measures worked. The speed at which the plague spreads and its lethality toward lower-level cultivators far exceeded the expectations of the Grand Tao sect leadership. In less than a month, almost every disciple of the Grand Tao sect had contracted this strange illness. The miraculous creation purple gold pill, a divine medicine, wasn't available to all disciples. Ordinary pills proved to be more of a psychological comfort than an actual remedy in the face of this plague. It all depended on individual luck. Those with milder symptoms gradually recovered after enduring some pain, though their cultivation levels dropped. At least they survived. However, more disciples experienced severe symptoms, and despite using all kinds of life-saving techniques and secret arts, they couldn't escape death. The situation grew even grimmer, with everyone in the Grand Tao sect living in fear. No one dared to handle the bodies of the dead. From a safe distance, they would use spells to completely disintegrate the corpses, serving as a makeshift funeral. The Grand Tao sect, once filled with life, now was shrouded in sorrow, with cries of despair echoing throughout. It was hard to believe this was one of the most powerful sects in the cultivation world. Given how the Grand Tao sect was faring, one could only imagine the devastation in other places. On this day, sect leader Ji Chengxi once again summoned senior sister Zhao and Li Fan to the main hall to discuss the strange plague. Cough cough. As soon as they entered the hall, the sound of coughing echoed from all directions. The elders and sect leader Ji Chengxi no longer had their former vigor, appearing weak and sickly, barely keeping up appearances. Some elders even lay down, with puppets around them gently massaging their bodies, their occasional groans breaking the silence. Despite being in the same hall, Li Fan noticed that everyone was isolated from each other with barriers and formations. How have you two been feeling lately? Sect leader Ji asked. Thank you for your concern, sect leader. Over the past month, we each took 3 creation purple gold pills. Both Li Fan and I are now fine. Most of the symptoms have disappeared, and we should fully recover soon, senior sister Zhao replied with her head lowered. Cough cough, that's good to hear, but you must remain cautious in the future and continue to prioritize personal protection. Based on the current situation, even if someone recovers from this plague, they could face a second or even multiple infections, Ji Chengxi said with a serious expression. Senior sister Zhao's face paled slightly. Before she could respond, Ji Chengxi continued, the reason I called you here today is to assign you a task. After a period of investigation, we've come to some initial conclusions regarding the origin of this strange plague. Li Fan immediately focused, listening intently. Previously, we suspected that this illness was caused by a longevity immortal heavenly sovereign reversing some natural law of the world. Recently, we've confirmed which natural law was altered. In the eyes of cultivators, mortals are like ants. However, this illness allows even mortals to kill immortals. A trace of uncontrollable anger flashed in Ji Chengshi's eyes. This plague actually originated from a plague that spread among mortals years ago. It originally posed no threat to us cultivators, but after this manipulation by a heavenly sovereign, it underwent a fundamental change, becoming a threat to our very lives. Hey, it could now be called the Immortal Plague. I don't know what this longevity sovereign was thinking or what their ultimate goal is, but it seems they are determined to drive us to destruction. The situation is starting to spiral out of control. Out of control? Senior Sister Zhao asked in shock, has this immortal plague really reached that level? Ji Chengxi shook his head, you've been in the sect this whole time, so you don't know what's been happening in the outside world over the past month. The source of the immortal plague is mortals, and this fact has spread among the cultivation world. Those cultivators who are dying from the plague have begun to take out their anger by slaughtering mortals. The world outside is now a scene of hell. They are too cowardly to confront the heavenly sovereign, so they vent their frustration on the weak. It's disgraceful. Senior Sister Zhao's eyes flashed with cold fury upon hearing this. Ji Chengxi, however, said, it's understandable that those who are on the verge of death lose their sanity. We can't completely blame them. But the indiscriminate slaughter of mortals is excessive. The immortal plague lies dormant within the mortals, and even if they die, the plague won't disappear. In fact, it will spread even further. Moreover, if they truly wipe out all mortals, how will the world be sustained? Ji Chengxi paused slightly. That's why this madness must be stopped. All the elders are currently focused on finding a way to counter the immortal plague, and they cannot leave their duties. So, I'm entrusting this task to you too. Of course, the Xuanwang realm is vast, and the two of you alone won't be enough. Other sects will also send disciples to help save mortal lives. Senior Sister Zhao bowed and accepted the command but raised a concern. Under normal circumstances, those cultivators might fear the reputation of the 10 great sects and stop the slaughter of mortals. But now, many of them are so far gone. Ji Chengxi waved his hand to cut her off and said, those who have completely lost their minds, you needn't waste time trying to reason with them. Just kill them. As for the others, tell them that the 10 great sects have devised a way to deal with the immortal plague. Have them wait patiently and stop committing senseless slaughter. Senior Sister Zhao's expression turned strange. Have we really found a way to counter the immortal plague? To her surprise, Ji Chengxi nodded slightly. The idea came from the longevity immortal beast of the beast-taming sect. Since the source of the immortal plague is mortals, and we can't kill them all, the solution is to exile them to the various cave heavens and minor worlds attached to the Xuanwang realm. Without mortals, the concentration of the immortal plague in our realm should significantly decrease. Afterward, completely eradicating it won't be difficult. At the very least, it will allow us cultivators to live normal lives. Although the feasibility of this mass migration is still under discussion, it seems like the best option for now. The Great Migration Plan. Relay this to the other cultivators. With a sliver of hope, they shouldn't be as crazed. Chapter 522. And so, Li Fan and Senior Sister Zhao received their orders and descended from the mountain. Due to the mass deaths of mortals, the concentration of immortal plague in the environment skyrocketed. To prepare for this, before their departure, Sect Master Ji provided them with a generous supply of resources, including the creation purple gold pill. However, this wasn't enough to entirely ease their heavy hearts. After confirming that immortal plague could infect multiple times, they realized that no matter how well prepared or protected they were, constantly being in contact would inevitably lead to reinfection. The painful memories of being infected just a month ago were still fresh in their minds. As cultivators, it had been a long time since they experienced something worse than death. If this torment were to repeat again and again, that kind of suffering might be worse than simply ending it all. Of course, this was merely a moment of frustration. Both Senior Sister Zhao and Li Fan were wholeheartedly dedicated to the Tao, seeking immortality, and wouldn't easily give up their lives. But orders were absolute, and even though Senior Sister Zhao held the esteemed position of the future sect master of Grand Tao sect, she could only obediently follow instructions. This situation seems a bit odd. I've made inquiries, and although the other 9 sects have also sent their disciples out into the world, at most, they sent true disciples. I haven't heard of any sect, like our Grand Tao sect, sending out someone of Tao child status. Li Fan slightly shook his head, his eyes full of confusion. Senior sister, you are the next in line to become the sect master, an incredibly noble position. Especially in these turbulent times, what you should be doing is staying in the sect, in secluded cultivation, striving to raise your strength. Not participating in some absurd mission. What if, just what if? Li Fan glanced at her before continuing, I mean, if something were to happen to you, and you fall, how much would it cost the sect to cultivate another Dao child? All the resources they've invested in you up until now, would they all be wasted? Sect Master Ji's decision this time is truly hard to understand. And none of the elders even voiced any objections. Senior Sister Zhao glanced at Li Fan and said calmly, Junior brother, you're overthinking it. Our Dao sect is representing of all immortal sects. Sending a Dao child to represent us shows how seriously we take this matter. Besides, her voice suddenly became slightly somber, Junior brother, in the past, your assumption might have been correct. But now, the times have changed. Li Fan was suddenly startled. Indeed, he was still stuck in the mindset of the prosperous era of great immortal cultivation, unable to adapt to the current reality. In today's cultivation world, each person held their own irreplaceable position. The quicker a Dao child increased their cultivation, the more of a threat they became in the eyes of the sect elders. In the past, one could cultivate together with the sect. If someone didn't want to become the sect master, they could simply retire as a grand elder and pass on the position. But now, not interested in being the sect master. Fine, but you can't continue holding on to the heaven-slaying Dao scripture, right? You'll have to switch your cultivation method. Who could accept that? Therefore, suppressing the growth of Dao children had become the logical outcome. Realizing this, Li Fan fell silent. The two followed the trail of blood-red light in the sky, arriving at a desolate ruin. They remembered that just a few years ago, this was a thriving mortal city, with a population of at least 500,000. But now, there was not a trace of life left. Scanning with their divine senses, they saw that the ruins were filled with the corpses of mortals. Men, women, young, old, no one was spared. The horrific scene was something that even the most terrifying nightmare couldn't conjure. What utter madness! Murderous intent flashed in Senior Sister Zhao's eyes as she cautiously protected herself from the immortal plague still lingering below, casting a spell to trace the perpetrator's tracks. Let's go. Moments later, after finding their target, Senior Sister Zhao transformed into a beam of light and flew away swiftly. Li Fan hurried to follow. He lagged slightly behind, and when he caught up, he found Senior Sister Zhao standing there, somewhat lost and at a loss. It turned out that the cultivator who had massacred the city had already succumbed to the immortal plague and died. The culprit was already dead, leaving Senior Sister Zhao with no outlet for her burning rage. Were they wrong? If we didn't have so many pills to save our lives, wouldn't we do the same when facing death? For a moment, Senior Sister Zhao couldn't help but question, feeling lost. Li Fan was about to respond when he noticed a strange phenomenon in the sky above them. Ku Xinfeng, a cultivator of 56 years, who established his Dao foundation with the mountain stone sword. Now dead, his Dao returns to heaven. As the scene in the sky unfolded, a message instantly flashed in Li Fan's mind. What is this? Li Fan was stunned. Senior Sister Zhao also noticed the strange sight above and looked up. Moments later, her expression darkened. She unleashed a sword slash, trying to scatter the phenomenon. However, it seemed that the vision was engraved upon the heavens, and her attack was futile. What is this supposed to be? A joke from the heavens? Li Fan remained silent. No shared cultivation methods, immortal plague. And now, these eerie, death declarations, had appeared. Who knew what else might happen in the future? He sighed lightly. Let's go, Senior Sister. There's no point staying here. The sooner we finish the mission, the sooner we can return to the sect. Li Fan advised. After a long pause, Senior Sister Zhao didn't respond. She simply obliterated the body of Ku Xinfeng, who had committed the massacre but had now fallen victim to the immortal plague. Only then did she turn into a streak of light and fly off. The next 2 years were spent traveling across the Xuanwang realm, preventing countless tragedies. They killed numerous insane cultivators and saved many mortal lives. Once news of the Great Migration Plan spread, the remaining cultivators gradually calmed down, no longer slaughtering mortals so recklessly. Of course, some sporadic incidents couldn't be avoided. There were places the two couldn't reach, where their efforts fell short. Having completed the sect master's task, The two were preparing to return to the sect as planned. However, an unexpected order caught them off guard. Sect Master Ji Changxi declared that the Great Migration Plan had officially begun. They were not to return just yet. They were to remain in the Xuanwang realm and assist in coordinating the various sects, helping to carry out this crucial plan for all cultivators. Li Fan, seeing senior sister Zhao's face darken to the point where it almost dripped with anger, didn't dare to speak. He had no idea how to comfort her, so he simply stood silently by her side. After a long while, senior sister Zhao's expression returned to normal. She smiled gracefully. Let's go, junior brother. Orders are orders, after all. For some reason, seeing senior sister Zhao's smile filled Li Fan with an indescribable sense of fear. Hey, yes, senior sister. He responded cautiously, hurrying to comply. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. With the collective efforts of all cultivators, the Great Migration Plan was successfully completed. All the mortals had been relocated to various cave heavens and small worlds, and the Xuanwang realm was left empty. After being away from their sect for over a century, senior sister Zhao and Li Fan were finally able to return. Chapter 523. Senior Sister. Li Fan looked at senior sister Zhao, whose expression was complex as she was about to be summoned alone by Sect Master Ji. He wanted to speak but stopped himself. What's wrong, junior brother? She glanced at Li Fan and said softly, we've lived and died together for over a century. What is there that we cannot be honest about? Nothing. Li Fan smiled freely. Go ahead, senior sister. Just remember, no matter what you do, I will support you. Senior sister Zhao smiled and walked into the grand hall of the sect. Boom. The heavy doors slammed shut, and Li Fan watched her disappearing figure, a trace of emotion flickering in his eyes that was hard for others to notice. Instead of waiting outside the hall as he was supposed to, Li Fan returned to the Penglai Peak where he and senior sister Zhao resided, gathering all valuable items from their cave dwelling. Then, pretending to patrol, he made his way near the exit of the sect's protective formation. On the surface, he acted no differently from an ordinary disciple, but in truth, Li Fan had already prepared to flee at any moment. It wasn't that Li Fan wanted to betray the Grand Dao sect, but rather because during their century together at the foot of the mountain, Li Fan had accidentally discovered that senior sister Zhao was secretly collecting the blood of cultivators, and even mortals, who were infected with the Immortal plague. Although she only took a single drop each time and was extremely discreet, how could her actions escape the eyes of someone who had spent so much time with her? At first, after each sample was taken, senior sister Zhao would fall gravely ill. Thanks to Li Fan's attentive care and a supply of medicinal pills to protect her, she managed to recover each time. When Li Fan asked her about it, she would jokingly say she wanted to attempt reversing the Immortal plague and directly achieve eternal life. Li Fan, of course, didn't believe her. However, knowing her nature, once senior sister Zhao made up her mind about something, even a partner of 100 years like Li Fan couldn't dissuade her. So he simply stopped trying, telling her only, take care of your health. Later, it seemed that she had indeed listened to his advice and gradually stopped collecting blood samples. The intervals between her illnesses grew longer, and the symptoms became milder each time. But Li Fan knew it was all a facade. Senior sister Zhao had never truly abandoned her reckless behavior. The reason she no longer showed signs of abnormality was that she had likely mastered a method to shield herself from the effects of the Immortal plague. Over the years, though they had always been together, senior sister Zhao's cultivation had advanced to a level that even Li Fan couldn't fathom. The various auras that occasionally emanated from her made Li Fan secretly alarmed. Even though he was sure she had no intention of harming him, Li Fan couldn't shake the nagging sense of danger in his heart. Although senior sister Zhao didn't say it outright, Li Fan could guess her intentions. She had been collecting so much blood infused with the Immortal plague to likely deal with sect master Ji Changxi. A century of deliberate suppression had pushed senior sister Zhao's resentment toward the sect master to its limit. As the saying goes, those who block my path to the Dao shall not live. Li Fan believed that his increasingly fanatical senior sister might very well carry out such a rebellious act. Not long before, when she entered the sect's grand hall, a flash of murderous intent in her eyes was no illusion. Ji Changxi may have been at the Dao integration stage for over 6 centuries, with powers and abilities that are unfathomable. But after all, he hasn't yet reached the longevity stage. Considering senior sister Zhao's displayed talent and her real combat strength, combined with the help of the Immortal Plague, she might stand a chance. But even if she wins by a narrow margin, what's the point? Even if she kills Ji Changxi, there are still a dozen Dao integration elders, not to mention the 2 hidden heavenly sovereign who rarely appear. What, will she kill them all? Li Fan couldn't understand why senior sister Zhao would make such a decision. Whether she succeeded or failed, the entire Grand Dao sect would know. At that point, not only would she face the entire sect's attack, but Li Fan, as her Dao companion, wouldn't be spared either. Thus, Li Fan, always planning ahead, had long prepared to escape. As for why he hadn't fled yet, he was simply hoping that a miracle might happen. Time passed bit by bit. Because Ji Changxi had previously ordered that he had important matters to discuss with his Dao child, no one was allowed to disturb him. As a result, the Grand Hall remained sealed. Li Fan gazed at the mountain peak from afar, growing increasingly anxious. 7 days later, the grand doors slowly opened, and Li Fan's breath instantly hitched. However, what happened next was completely unexpected. Ji Changxi walked out first, followed by senior sister Zhao. The 2 of them exited together. They didn't fight to the death. Was I overthinking things? Puzzled, Li Fan squinted slightly. Not only had the expected deadly clash not occurred, but the relationship between the 2 seemed to have improved. In fact, when senior sister Zhao left, Ji Changxi even patted her on the shoulder as if offering encouragement. And senior sister Zhao accepted it without any unusual expression on her face. Seeing this, Li Fan's heart trembled, filled with confusion. In the past, aside from him, senior sister Zhao had always been extremely averse to physical contact with others. But now, feeling that something was amiss, countless thoughts flashed through Li Fan's mind. But he didn't have time to ponder them all. First, he remembered that there was something he hadn't yet done. He hurried back to Penglai Peak and, before senior sister Zhao returned, placed everything back where it belonged. When she returned, senior sister Zhao didn't notice anything unusual in the cave. After all, the 2 hadn't been back to this home in a century. Senior sister, we've been busy with trivial matters for 100 years and haven't spent much time together. How about, Li Fan tentatively suggested dual cultivation. A trace of nostalgia flashed in senior sister Zhao's eyes, and with a coy smile, she agreed. After a passionate encounter, Li Fan's suspicions gradually faded. What did the sect master summon you for this time? Li Fan asked casually, holding her flawless, jade-like body in his arms. He said that soon, the position of Grand Dao sect master will be passed on to me. He wants me to prepare in advance, senior sister Zhao said flatly, without the slightest fluctuation in her tone. It was as if the position she was about to inherit, as the leader of one of the top 10 sects in the immortal world, was merely a child's toy. But those words, spoken so casually, struck Li Fan like a thunderclap. His mind went blank, and he temporarily lost the ability to think. And the heaven-slaying Dao scripture? Li Fan asked reflexively, his brain still in a daze. The sect master's exclusive technique. Of course, it will be handed over to me for cultivation, senior sister Zhao laughed softly, tracing circles around Li Fan's heart with her finger as if she had just reclaimed her favorite toy. Chapter 524. Before I tell you, junior brother, this matter is known only to the sect master and me, no third person has ever heard of it. So you must help me keep this secret well. Senior sister Zhao said this with a faint, mysterious tone. Suddenly, a wave of deadly crisis surged into Li Fan's heart. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. His body tensed for a moment but quickly returned to normal. Gently stroking senior sister's smooth, pale back, he said as though it were natural, of course. I was stunned when I first heard this news. It felt a little unbelievable. Not to mention the elders. If they knew, they would certainly unite to stop it. Even with the sect master's support, compared to that group of old monsters, senior sister, our power is too weak. We still need to gather strength, stay low, and bide our time, striving to strike decisively when the moment is right, Li Fan thoughtfully advised. Senior sister Zhao remained silent, lying quietly in Li Fan's arms, unmoving as if she had fallen asleep. By the way, senior sister, why did Sect Master Ji suddenly want to pass the position of Sect Master to you? After a long silence, Li Fan finally couldn't help but ask. Who knows? These old geezers are always so unpredictable. Maybe he's close to achieving longevity realm and doesn't want to bother with the mess of our sect anymore. Senior Sister Zhao shifted her position lazily as she spoke. After all, the world is getting more chaotic. In the eyes of those at the peak of cultivation, these so-called 10 great immortal sects are more of a burden than a benefit. Her voice grew softer and softer until it was barely audible. Seeing that she had no intention of continuing, Li Fan dared not press further. Instead, they once again engaged in dual cultivation. A fleeting moment of indulgence. Li Fan knew that ever since that day when Senior Sister Zhao walked out of the sect's main hall, she had changed somehow. It was just an inexplicable feeling, without any concrete evidence. In the days that followed, as they spent every moment together, he didn't notice any obvious abnormality in this senior sister, who had accompanied him for over 100 years. But, Li Fan was still convinced that some subtle change was happening to her, bit by bit. Yet, where did this persistent sense of impending danger come from? Even if Senior Sister Zhao was hiding something from him, it didn't seem like her feelings for him were fake. If she became the sect master of the Grand Dao sect, he would become her Dao companion. This wasn't just some ordinary small sect, it was the illustrious and renowned Grand Dao sect, famous across the entire cultivation world. At that point, he would truly be second only to one, above 10,000 others. Even in his wildest dreams of ambition, he had never dared to aspire to such a position. Now, thanks to Senior Sister Zhao, wealth and glory were within his grasp. So, what went wrong? Li Fan instinctively felt that he had forgotten something important. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember it. All he could do was carry on with his life as usual while secretly investigating. Time flew by. Another 3 years passed. During this time, thanks to the combined efforts of many brilliant cultivators from the 10 great immortal sects, they finally found a way to eradicate the lingering, immortal plague that had permeated the world. Thus, large-scale eradication operations began. For the sake of future survival, every surviving sect had to send cultivators to various parts of the Xuanwang realm to carry out the eradication of the immortal plague. Originally, Li Fan and Senior Sister Zhao had always been given the hard labor, but since Senior Sister Zhao had been confirmed as the next sect master, Ji Chengxi naturally no longer sent them out. Instead, another group of 5 core disciples was sent. Li Fan was able to enjoy some leisure, staying within the sect. As time passed, even within the sect, Li Fan could sense that the environment in the Xuanwang realm seemed to be gradually improving. Great peace follows great calamity. Hopefully, the world's tribulations will end soon, and we can once again welcome the golden age of cultivation. Occasionally, Li Fan would hear fellow disciples wishing aloud in the sect. As the immortal plague gradually dissipated, Senior Sister Zhao became increasingly busy. She seemed on the verge of officially assuming the position of sect master of the Grand Dao sect and was constantly attending various meetings. Those in attendance were all highly respected elders of the Grand Dao sect. It was certainly not easy to convince them. Li Fan often saw elders storming out of meetings with angry expressions. But Senior Sister Zhao assured him that there was nothing to worry about. More and more elders were being convinced to support her in taking the position of sect master. Very soon, I'll truly become the sect master of the Grand Dao sect, Senior Sister Zhao smiled and said. Regarding this matter, not only did Li Fan have no worries, but the fear that had always lingered in his heart grew stronger. It wasn't just about Senior Sister Zhao anymore. It felt like something strange was happening throughout the entire Grand Dao sect, something eerie and unsettling but impossible to describe. Although he could sense the unusualness, Li Fan couldn't figure out what it was. Feeling powerless, Li Fan grew more restless and angry with each passing day. Naturally, Senior Sister Zhao noticed these emotions in him. Fortunately, Li Fan brushed it off as being caused by the increasingly frequent celestial phenomena, the falling stars in the sky. Originally, people had thought that once the immortal plague was eradicated, cultivators could enjoy a brief period of peace. But who could have predicted that not long after, the world would change again? Previously, Li Fan and Senior Sister Zhao had witnessed the death declarations, appearing randomly in the sky when a cultivator fell. But now, this randomness was becoming something of a certainty. Even more terrifying, the range and power of these celestial phenomena were growing. When a cultivator at the Dao integration stage fell, the phenomenon would nearly cover the sky within tens of thousands of miles. More frightening still, every cultivator who witnessed these death declarations felt an increasing sense of dread and unease in their hearts. Those who had long given up on cultivation, content to live out their remaining years, began to feel a strange mixture of sorrow, frustration, and anger. When a cultivator within the Grand Tao sect fell due to reaching the end of their lifespan, a peculiar atmosphere began to spread within the sect. It was in this context that Senior Sister Zhao officially assumed the position of sect master. 17 elders unanimously agreed with the decision of the former sect master, Ji Changxi. This shocked many disciples who had been expecting a show of dissent. At the same time, Li Fan's unease reached its peak. Li Fan walked within the Grand Tao sect, his mind swirling with countless thoughts. The sect was decorated everywhere with lanterns and banners, finally lightening the gloomy atmosphere caused by the recent calamities. Whenever disciples encountered Li Fan, they would stop in their tracks and bow in respect. Li Fan nodded in return each time. As the Tao companion of the sect master, Li Fan had gained access to an abundance of cultivation resources, something that most cultivators could only dream of. Even if the respect shown to him wasn't always sincere, it was a necessary pretense. However, at this moment, Li Fan had already made up his mind. He needed to find an opportunity to escape from the Grand Tao sect as soon as possible. Senior Sister Zhao has just been promoted to sect master and is busy handling various matters within the sect. Representatives from other sects are also visiting to offer congratulations, and she has to make time to meet them. He thought, right now, she's at her busiest, so she's less likely to notice me. If I miss this opportunity, when she has more free time. As this thought crossed his mind, Li Fan resolutely made his decision. 2 days later, he seized a moment when no one was paying attention and quietly made his way to the sect's exit, alone. Looking back at the Grand Tao sect, Li Fan's mind flashed with memories of Senior Sister Zhao, with whom he had spent more than 100 years side by side. He hesitated for a moment. But in the end, he gritted his teeth and flew away. He raced eastward at full speed until he finally left the boundaries of the Grand Tao sect. The ominous feeling of danger that had been weighing on Li Fan's heart finally began to fade. My intuition was right, he thought to himself. Just as he was feeling secretly relieved at having escaped, 2 beams of light suddenly appeared behind him, catching up in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the lights landed in front of Li Fan, blocking his path. Where do you think you're going, junior nephew? An elderly man with long eyebrows smiled as he looked at Li Fan. Uncle Dong, Uncle Zhang. Li Fan's face darkened. These two were elders of the Grand Tao sect, part of the sect's 17 core cultivators who had reached the Tao integration stage. It seemed that his plan to escape had already been discovered. Despite this, Li Fan wasn't ready to give up. Haha, well, let me explain to you two elders. Although I am honored that Senior Sister has been promoted to sect master, I've been feeling a bit troubled. Senior Sister Zhao's status is now exalted, and her power is growing every day. As her Tao companion, I'm still only at the soul transformation stage, and people are bound to gossip. The pressure has been unbearable. Feigning a look of deep distress, Li Fan slowly approached the two elders. The sect is rebuilding, and everyone has their roles. But I find myself idle every day, which is truly. Without warning, a chaotic gray light shot out from Li Fan's eyes, striking Uncle Dong and Uncle Zhang directly in the face. It was an attack from the sinister technique Li Fan had mastered, the soul-cutting divine light, part of the soul-severing divine radiance art. This technique directly targeted the divine soul of a cultivator, and even though his opponents were at the Tao integration stage, Li Fan was confident that, caught off guard, they would suffer greatly. Without waiting to see their reactions, he immediately activated the godlight escape technique, attempting to flee at top speed. But to his horror, Li Fan quickly realized that the space around him had been completely sealed at some unknown point. Even though his escape technique was swift, it had no place to work. Uncle Dong and Uncle Zhang had anticipated Li Fan's sneak attack. Each held a treasure mirror in their hands, which reflected the soul-cutting divine light and nullified its effect. As they looked at Li Fan, their eyes filled with ridicule. How the sect master treats you, junior nephew, is clear to the entire sect. And yet, you still chose to betray her. If the sect master were to hear of this, I wonder how heartbroken she would be. Before Li Fan could attempt anything else, the two elders combined their strength to subdue him, leaving him unable to move. My life is over, Li Fan thought, despair flooding his mind. When they brought him back to the sect, he didn't see Senior Sister Zhao. Instead, his cultivation was sealed, and he was thrown into a secluded chamber, essentially a prison. Although called a secluded chamber, it was no different from a cell. At first, Li Fan thought he would soon meet with Senior Sister Zhao, and he rehearsed countless words in his mind, hoping his eloquence could save his life. But what he hadn't anticipated was that Senior Sister Zhao, and indeed the entire Grand Dao sect, seemed to have completely forgotten about him. No one came to visit him. In the isolation of the chamber, there was nothing but Li Fan himself. He couldn't cultivate. Every time he tried to focus his mind or contemplate divine abilities, mocking and derisive voices would echo from the walls, breaking his concentration. This, it seemed, was to prevent him from breaking free from his sealed cultivation. At first, Li Fan maintained his composure. But as time passed, even his resolve began to waver. Eventually, boredom gave way to agitation and anger. In the end, he went mad. He threw himself at the hard walls of the chamber, over and over again, his body becoming a bloody mess. But it was futile. Finally, Li Fan's eyes grew dull and lifeless. He sat motionless on the floor, as though he were a soulless statue. It was impossible to tell how much time had passed, but one day, the long sealed door of the chamber suddenly swung open. For a long time, no one entered. Li Fan, however, acted as if he hadn't seen it. He remained unresponsive, ignoring the open door. It wasn't until more than 10 days had passed that a flicker of life returned to his eyes. With great effort, he pushed himself up, his body trembling as he took shaky steps toward the exit. Because he hadn't walked in so long, his body was weak, and he immediately fell to the ground. He struggled to stand up and took another step, only to fall again. In this manner, crawling and stumbling, he finally made his way back outside. The Grand Dao sect before him looked exactly as he remembered. Disciples wandered between the mountain peaks, cultivating. It was even more lively than before. But, it was eerily quiet. Not a single voice could be heard within the entire sect. It was as if all the cultivators living within had become mute. Or perhaps, they all shared the same thoughts and no longer needed the lowly method of communication known as speech. Not even eye contact or divine sense was required. They understood each other perfectly without such means. Li Fan stumbled through the sect. After being imprisoned for who knows how long, his appearance had become utterly disheveled. Yet no one seemed to notice him. They simply carried on with their own tasks as if he didn't exist. The feeling of being rejected by everyone around him gnawed at Li Fan's mind. Eventually, after wandering through the entire sect and still not finding the person he sought, Li Fan couldn't hold back any longer. "Senior Sister. Where are you, Senior Sister?" It took him a long time to remember how to speak. Then, with a hoarse voice, he roared in anger. His voice grew louder and louder, echoing throughout the entire sect. And then, every single cultivator in the sect turned to look at him. Even though he had already become somewhat deranged, at this moment, when suddenly being stared at by these cultivators who had previously ignored him, Li Fan's body stiffened instantly. He stopped his meaningless low howling, moved slightly, trying to escape the spotlight that was on him. But he soon realized that all the cultivators' gazes followed him wherever he went. This eerie scene made Li Fan's dead heart feel a chill, which turned into rage. Overcome by desperation, Li Fan picked up a stone and ruthlessly hurled it at a nearby disciple of the Grand Dao sect. Even though the opponent was only at the Golden Core stage, Li Fan's cultivation was completely sealed at the moment, making him no different from Immortal. Logically, he should not have been a match for the disciple. However, the disciple didn't dodge or avoid the sudden attack, allowing the stone to smash his skull. With a thud, the disciple collapsed, and blood slowly trickled from his deformed head. But the death of a life brought no change. The entire Grand Dao sect continued to operate as before. "Senior Sister, come out and see me," Li Fan shouted angrily. The only response was the countless gazes still fixed on him. Li Fan went berserk, picking up the stone again and attacking another Grand Dao sect disciple. He killed over 100 people in a row before finally collapsing to the ground, exhausted and breathless. At this moment, lying on the ground, Li Fan was horrified to discover that the cultivators he had smashed into pieces were somehow alive again. Their faces were calm, as if his earlier rampage had been nothing but an illusion. Li Fan looked at his hands, then at the stone now soaked in darkened blood, feeling utterly confused. "Monsters, they're all monsters," he muttered softly. "Ha, how could they be monsters?" A familiar, melodious voice rang out suddenly. Li Fan jerked his head up in the direction of the sound. But what he saw made his scalp tingle, and he even felt a wave of nausea. The voice that was identical to Senior Sister Zhao's came from a middle-aged, overweight cultivator. Startled, Li Fan scrambled back in fear, putting distance between them. "Junior brother, don't you think I look beautiful like this?" The voice called again from behind him. Li Fan turned, and this time, it was a beautiful young female cultivator, gazing at him with affection. She softly said, "You've been looking at my old face for hundreds of years, surely you're tired of it. Isn't a change refreshing?" Another alluring woman approached, her curvaceous body pressed tightly against Li Fan as she whispered in his ear, "The taste of the sect master's wife, haven't you longed for it? Didn't you once ask me to transform into her? But this time, it's the real deal. Doesn't this excite you, junior brother?" Li Fan trembled as she explored his body. After a moment, he suddenly shoved her away and fled in panic. Yet, many more stunning female cultivators quickly surrounded him, their eyes brimming with affection, eager to ascend to bliss with him. All their voices were filled with the seductive charm that Senior Sister Zhao used to have. "Hee, I see, junior brother. You want something more exciting. No worries, I can have all the female cultivators of the Grand Dao sect join you. Among them, there are many sisters, sisters-in-law, even mothers and daughters, or masters and disciples." As Li Fan was about to be drowned in a sea of female bodies, he suddenly gave up struggling. He collapsed helplessly on the ground, pounding the earth with his fists, sobbing loudly. "I don't want any sect master's wife, I don't want any sisters. I just want my senior sister. Give me back my senior sister." Like a child who had lost everything, Li Fan was devastated. As his cries echoed, the surroundings gradually grew silent. One by one, the female cultivators disappeared. Eventually, only a single figure in white remained, standing solitary and graceful. She approached Li Fan and gently squatted beside him, cradling his trembling, sobbing body in her arms. "Junior brother, you will always be a child who never grows up." Li Fan's body stiffened. He lifted his head sharply and saw the face before him. "Senior, sister, shish." Li Fan hugged Senior Sister Zhao tightly, desperately seeking solace in her. She didn't mind the dirt and odor clinging to him after being trapped for so long. They became one in body and soul. The Heaven and Earth Converging Manual. Back then, when we found the 4 cultivation techniques in the Xuantian sect ruins, apart from the Heaven and Earth Converging Manual, I practiced the soul-severing Divine Radiance art, and you practiced the Heaven's Sorrow Earth's Grief Sutra, which made up only 3 techniques. What was the 4th technique? I just can't seem to recall it. And over the years, I've unconsciously ignored its existence. Senior sister, you transformed into this because of that technique, didn't you? After their passionate moment, the desire in Li Fan's eyes suddenly vanished, replaced by cold indifference. Senior Sister Zhao wasn't surprised. She lazily stretched, and said, "So you've finally figured it out, junior brother. What a pity." After a pause, she spoke the name of the technique. Eternal Soul Dominance Art. Eternal Soul Dominance. Li Fan tasted the words as he looked at the mountain range, now teeming with Grand Dao sect disciples once more. His gaze grew complicated. "Senior sister, was it worth it?" Senior Sister Zhao scoffed, "Worth it? What's wrong with how I am now? I am one, and I am all. 1,000 bodies, yet one mind. I have never felt better in my entire life." She stood up suddenly, and Grand Dao sect master's robes automatically appeared on her. With a commanding tone, she declared, "I alone am the Dao sect." As if in response to her, every disciple in the Grand Dao sect, in unison, proclaimed, "I am the Dao sect." Li Fan felt his heart tremble, but his face remained unchanged. "When did it all begin? Was it Ji Changxi?" he asked. "It was him." Senior Sister Zhao nodded softly. "Do you remember when we reported the Immortal Plague, we submitted blood samples? At that time, he already sensed the trace of the Xuantian sect techniques we were practicing." As Senior Sister Zhao spoke, the figure of Ji Changxi, the former head of the Grand Dao sect, suddenly appeared before Li Fan, recounting his story to him. "We were still too young back then, thinking that we had hidden ourselves well enough. But we never imagined that true experts could see through our cultivation techniques with just a drop of blood. The Xuantian sect's techniques are divided into 4 levels. Zan, mysterious, Tian, heaven, Di, earth, and Huang, yellow, from the highest to the lowest. The 4 techniques we obtained from that ruin were all of the highest. Mysterious level. Not only were they mysterious and divine, but they were also on par with the true teachings of the Grand Dao sect. Furthermore, there was something even more enticing about them, something that even moved the heart of Ji Changxi, the head of the Grand Tao sect. It was said that the Xuantian sect's techniques all originated from the sect's ultimate treasure, the Xuantian mirror. Those who cultivated to a high level could even establish a connection with this treasure. Though at the time, Ji Changxi wanted nothing more than to capture us on the spot and thoroughly interrogate us. However, he knew that the Xuantian sect's techniques carried their own secrecy measures. Even if others tried to forcibly pry into them, all they would obtain would be distorted and incorrect versions of the techniques. To learn the real techniques, they had to be willingly written down by the cultivator. Besides, at that time, his cultivation level was only at the late Tao integration stage, not much stronger than mine. Forcing the issue wouldn't guarantee success. So, he decided to play the long game, setting a trap. Suddenly, Ji Changxi sneered. On one hand, he deliberately sent us out to perform various tasks, suppressing our cultivation growth. Meanwhile, he used his position as sect head to access resources and elevate his own cultivation. On the other hand, he combed through countless ancient texts, trying to find a way to break the encryption of the Xuantian sect's techniques. In fact, he almost succeeded. From the hidden archives of the Grand Tao sect, Ji Changxi found a relic from when the Xuantian sect was destroyed. There was a secret technique called, seize the heaven and replace it. It was a method used by the Xuantian sect to deal with their own members. It could completely strip someone of their cultivation and techniques, transferring the realms and power gained from cultivating Xuantian sect techniques to oneself, like grafting flowers onto a tree. And so, the day we returned to the sect, he eagerly summoned me for a meeting. Ji Changxi's face shifted, his form twisting in light and shadow until he reverted to the stunning appearance of Senior Sister Zhao. Unfortunately for him, he miscalculated. He never expected that I wasn't just cultivating a single Xuantian sect technique. He also didn't realize that I had long grown tired of him and wanted to replace him. Senior Sister Zhao reached out and stroked Li Fan's cheek, her expression dreamy. Junior brother, do you know the kind of pain it is to be drenched in tens of thousands of drops of blood infected with the Immortal plague? Even our mighty sect head Ji couldn't withstand it. The only regret is that the damage caused by the Immortal plague was so severe that I had to give up part of him. Senior Sister Zhao lightly licked her lips, as if savoring a pleasant memory. The technique, eternal soul dominance, when fully cultivated, nothing in this world remains except me. Because of how evil this technique is, you didn't choose it back then, junior brother. Now, do you regret it a little, junior brother? She asked softly. A hint of regret did indeed flicker through Li Fan's heart. However, he remained stubborn and replied, HMPH, what's the use of regret? The past is the past, and there's no going back. Suddenly, Li Fan paused. In that very moment, a strange feeling surged within him. It was as if he wished, he could truly reverse everything. But, upon deeper contemplation, he couldn't quite grasp where this feeling was coming from, leaving him with a faint sense of loss and confusion. Senior Sister Zhao didn't notice the change in Li Fan's heart. She continued speaking, seemingly to herself, what goes around comes around. So, junior brother, everything was destined. I vaguely sensed Ji Changxi's malice. To protect you and myself, I secretly cultivated the eternal soul dominance technique, hoping to find a slim chance of survival within his schemes. This technique is truly overbearing, fully embodying the essence of soul. After I began cultivating it, it even erased your memories of the technique from your mind, junior brother. And when I succeeded in turning sect head Ji into a part of me, I finally understood. This is our destiny, the fate that belongs to me. This world is filled with too many irrelevant people. So, I alone am enough. The so-called many, but all heart. As she spoke, the faces of everyone in the Grand Tao sect all shifted, becoming identical to Senior Sister Zhao's. Junior brother, do you still love me? Let's merge into one and never be separated again. They all looked at Li Fan with deep affection, speaking in unison. Li Fan did not answer but instead stood solemnly. A black light tinged with iridescence appeared above his head, eventually taking the shape of a flying blade. At the same time, Li Fan's aura exploded outward. From an ordinary mortal, he ascended rapidly. Qi condensation, foundation establishment, golden core. He didn't stop until he reached the pinnacle of soul transformation. It turned out that Li Fan had long since broken the seals and restrictions on his body. He had accomplished this through the recent dual cultivation with Senior Sister Zhao. I thought, junior brother, that you missed me so much that you couldn't wait to cultivate with me, senior sister Zhao teased. But it turns out you had other intentions. Though her words were playful, senior sister Zhao seemed to have already anticipated Li Fan's small scheme, showing no surprise in her tone. What's this? Do you think that now that your cultivation has been restored, you can challenge me? She looked at Li Fan with amused interest. Who gave you the courage? That soul-extinguishing blade, from the soul-severing divine radiance art. Faced with her mockery, Li Fan didn't respond directly. He remained serious, as the black and iridescent, soul-extinguishing blade flickered, ready to strike. This blade was the ultimate killing move of the soul-severing divine radiance art. Despite its unremarkable name, it was a desperate attack that sacrificed one's soul. A unity of all minds, when fully realized, it can defy the laws of heaven, can't it? Senior sister, you're truly a peerless genius. But your path is not my path. I once said I wished to become eternal Tao companions with you, to live forever in freedom and happiness. I meant it with all my heart, and that hasn't changed. Li Fan's eyes were filled with memories as he sighed. Just as senior sister Zhao was caught in a moment of slight surprise. An incredibly intense light suddenly surged from within Li Fan, illuminating the entire sky above the Grand Tao sect. Even the thousands of bodies of senior sister Zhao couldn't help but close their eyes at that moment. But senior sister's path to immortality, wanting to use me as the price. I refuse. I will not allow senior sister to be so lonely from now on. Li Fan's loud laughter echoed through heaven and earth. Over the years, senior sister has comprehended, the all is one, although I am slow-witted, I have not been idle either. I have one move, senior sister, please teach me. Amidst the blinding light, Li Fan's voice, as firm as iron, resounded. Heaven, earth, shared, life. Li Fan's body was completely annihilated in a radiant flash of light. At that moment, senior sister Zhao's expression finally changed for the first time. No longer indifferent and fully in control, she now had a mix of frustration and amusement. No wonder you've made such slow progress over the years, junior brother. You've been putting all your thoughts into finding ways to restrict me. You and I have cultivated the heaven and earth converging manual. We are practically inseparable now. This move of shared lifespan of heaven and earth indeed poses a threat to me. If only your cultivation level were higher, junior brother. Countless versions of senior sister Zhao watched as endless streams of white light emanated from Li Fan's body, and together they extended their arms to absorb it. Junior brother, don't resist anymore. Become one with me. Cracks began to appear on the faces of her countless bodies, but they quickly healed. Meanwhile, the white light dimmed and gradually vanished between heaven and earth. When all traces of Li Fan's presence disappeared from the Grand Tao sect, it felt as though everything had come to a halt. Hey, junior brother Li Fan. I really have to thank you. That was quite the entertaining game. It's been years since I've had such an interesting experience. Senior sister Zhao looked into the sky, her expression dreamy, mumbling to herself. Immortal guidance light. That's the immortal guidance light. Who is it? Has another cultivator from our Canhong state caught the eye of the heavenly sovereign so soon? Ha ha ha, in just 1 month, 3 disciples from the immortal sect have ascended. Canhong state's reputation is truly about to soar. Noisy voices seemed to come from afar, and suddenly Li Fan woke up. Looking around, somewhat confused, he realized his surroundings were both familiar and unfamiliar. After a brief moment, memories that had been sealed for ages, as if from a different lifetime, surged back like a tidal wave. The Five Elders Association, the One Heart Immortal Sect, Canhong State. The Immortal Guidance Light. So, he was still in the moment of being summoned by the Immortal Guidance Light. But what were those hundreds of years of experiences that felt so real just now? An illusion. Li Fan couldn't help but look up. Through a rift in the sky, he could faintly see a vast mountain range with a sect nestled within. It was none other than the Grand Tao sect, one of the ancient 10 great immortal sects. At this moment, it seemed that the disciples of the Grand Tao sect were also looking in his direction, perhaps to welcome him as a new member. Unlike in the illusion, this Grand Tao sect was full of life. The expressions on each disciple's face were no longer stiff and lifeless, they were varied, as real as any human. They conversed with each other, discussing enthusiastically. It wasn't the dead silence that Li Fan had encountered in the illusion. While ascending in the immortal guidance light, Li Fan's body gradually became rigid and numb. He also felt his consciousness slowly fading. So, this is a wooden puppet. Li Fan thought as he slowly dissipated into the wind. All that remained was a decaying wooden puppet body, drifting toward the Grand Tao sect. The disciples of the Grand Tao sect reacted in various ways upon seeing this scene. Some were furious, some were thoughtful, some clapped their hands in joy. Some smiled faintly, it was impossible to discern where exactly the so-called, all is one, lay. Who made the final decision, no one knew. A white light shot out from the rift, completely annihilating the puppet body. Then, the immortal guidance light was retracted, the rift slowly closed, and the image of the one-heart immortal sect faded from the world. All that remained were the puzzled cultivators of the Five Elders Association, silently sighing. Meanwhile, in the Kongyan Sea, Li Fan's true body, overseeing the reconstruction immortal Kongyan city where the island of 10,000 immortals once stood, was stunned. What is it, Lord Island Master? Is something wrong? I'll have them corrected right away. Gao Yuan quickly said. After a moment, Li Fan waved his hand. It's nothing. You've done well. Keep up the good work. He continued his inspection with a calm expression, and after half a day, returned to his temporary quarters. After sealing the area around him, Li Fan's expression turned solemn. Hey, junior brother, I'm very much looking forward to our official meeting. Senior Sister Zhao's soft laughter seemed to still linger in his ears. Was it the last message from that wisp of divine consciousness, or had Li Fan's true body actually heard it? He couldn't tell for the moment. Senior Sister Zhao, quite the illusion. Li Fan reflected on the countless experiences he had in the Grand Tao sect over the past century. Though some details were fuzzy, most of the events felt as real as if he had lived through them, indistinguishable from reality. It even made Li Fan believe that he had indeed been Senior Sister Zhao's junior brother and a member of the ancient Grand Tao sect, only to reincarnate and regain his memories after decades. He even entertained the idea of seeking out Senior Sister Zhao for a reunion. If he only had memories of one lifetime and didn't have the truth, he might have actually done so. Li Fan shivered at the thought. Even with just a wisp of divine consciousness, being immersed in Senior Sister Zhao's illusion had such a profound effect on his true body. No wonder the cultivators of the Five Elders Association were so utterly loyal to her. He activated his Xuanwang heart refining mantra, using the occasional thoughts of submitting to Senior Sister Zhao as fuel to strengthen and nourish his Tao heart. After 3 days and nights, Li Fan finally seemed to have eradicated the influence of his trip to the One-Heart Immortal sect. At least, on the surface. Having freed himself completely, Li Fan began to analyze and organize his gains from the experience. Without a doubt, his time in the Grand Tao sect had been a fabrication by Senior Sister Zhao. In fact, from beginning to end, Li Fan didn't even know her real name. Yet within the illusion, he hadn't felt the slightest inconsistency. But amid the falsehoods were truths. At the very least, figures like Ji Chengxi and Mo Zhiren, disciples of the Grand Tao sect in the illusion, had truly existed once. The cultivation techniques, heaven and earth converging manual, and soul-severing divine radiance art, might not be fakes either. It was a pity that, just like after returning from the fallen immortal realm, the specific details couldn't be remembered clearly. Then, there were the world-altering events he had experienced as junior brother. So, the immortal mortal miasma was really the handiwork of a longevity immortal heavenly sovereign, not a natural evolution of heaven and earth. Li Fan thought of Yin Shangren of Yin Island. Could it be that this person discovered the hidden heavenly sovereign and was silenced as a result? Recalling Yin Shangren's inexplicable suicide in past lifetimes, Li Fan couldn't help but speculate. Once one's strength reaches the longevity stage, even if it's just a fake longevity expert trapped in a corner of the Xuanwang realm, their power and abilities are beyond the comprehension of ordinary cultivators. Just like Senior Sister Zhao, who during the guiding process, created a vivid illusion that felt like a romantic simulation. But for her, what was the true significance of it all? Li Fan believed that with her strength, even without the confusion of the illusion, she could easily devour and merge with other cultivators. Yet she chose not to do so. Instead, she insisted on playing this game with Li Fan, a game spanning several hundred years. Could it be that she was truly bored to the extreme? While this possibility couldn't be ruled out, Li Fan was more inclined to believe that there was some hidden secret behind it. The ants, trying to spy on the longevity immortal sovereigns, thought they were doing so discreetly, assuming they hadn't been discovered. In reality, everything might have already been under their watchful eyes. From the moment the gaze fell upon them, they had already been noticed. It was like Senior Sister Zhao's final reminder, or perhaps more accurately, her warning. Li Fan, trying to uncover the secret of the immortal mortal miasma, might be in the same position as Master Yin. A thought stirred in his mind, and Li Fan activated his formless killing intent, focusing his gaze on Yin Yin Island. After observing for a while, Master Yin seemed to be as engrossed as ever, conducting experiments on mortals. So many years have passed, yet the lethal power of the immortal mortal miasma doesn't seem to have weakened at all. Only its transmission ability has lessened compared to the original version. Watching the mortals in the experiment groaning in pain, Li Fan recalled the scenes he had seen in Senior Sister Zhao's illusion, comparing the two in his mind. Master Yin remained deeply focused, unaffected by the horrific cries of the mortals. It was as if the lives before him were nothing more than disposable resources. After watching for a while, Li Fan grew bored. It seems it will take him more time to truly figure anything out. Thinking this, Li Fan withdrew his gaze. His thoughts returned to the construction of Kangyun Immortal City. Now, most of the 6-month deadline had already passed. The basic structure of the Immortal City had been mostly completed. What remained were critical installations like the statue of the immortal ancestor and the long-distance teleportation formation. In this regard, with help from the cultivators dispatched by the headquarters of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, there was no need to worry too much. However, with the extended construction period, material shortages had inevitably started to appear. After all, the resources Li Fan had received initially were only sufficient to build one floating city, assuming there were no mistakes. Thanks to the coordination of He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan, the shortfall hadn't been immediately exposed. Meanwhile, Zhou Kebao, who had been secretly causing trouble, was surprisingly patient. For all this time, he hadn't contacted Li Fan or tried to feel him out. It seems I can't rely on him making the first move. I have to come up with a solution myself. Common materials can be purchased through Zhao Shuyuan's channels using contribution points. But as for strategic resources, those aren't easy to acquire through ordinary means. However, Li Fan smiled slightly, taking control of the current commander of the Kangyun Immortal City rebuilding project, Zhou Qingong. In the rebuilding project, all the cultivators had their own responsibilities. Being the commander wasn't actually too busy of a role. When there was no one around, Zhou Qingong quietly left Kangyun City. To avoid being followed, he even hid in the deep sea for 3 days and 3 nights. Only after confirming that he was safe did he contact the Five Elders Association. A flicker of light appeared on the broken stone, and after a moment, a blurry figure emerged. Why did you suddenly contact us? Did something happen? Perhaps due to his past achievements, the figure's tone was much warmer than before. Even though Zhou Qingong had broken protocol by reaching out first, the figure wasn't angry but instead asked with genuine concern. Haha, don't worry, boss. It's not trouble at all, in fact, it's a golden opportunity. Zhou Qingong said excitedly. Oh, the figure sounded intrigued. Boss, you probably know that thanks to He Zhenghao, I became the commander of the Kangyun City rebuilding project. Zhou Qingong lowered his voice. But recently, we've run into some difficulties. He then briefly explained how someone within the 10,000 Immortals Alliance was plotting against Li Fan by withholding resources and putting pressure on him. The figure on the broken stone frowned as he listened. This is intolerable. How could someone like Master Li be subjected to such humiliation? He's mentioned privately that he'd rather defect to the Five Elders Association than submit to those people. Before Zhou Qingong could finish, the figure was overjoyed. Oh, so, does that mean Li Fan intends to defect? However, he quickly became skeptical. But what if it's all part of a scheme by the 10,000 Immortals Alliance to lure us into a trap? Zhou Qingong felt a bit awkward. Ahem, boss, it was clearly just an angry remark. The figure fell silent. Zhou Qingong quickly continued, although the chances of defection are slim, we still have a great opportunity on our hands. Li Fan made a military pledge to the chief administrator. If he fails to complete construction on time, he could lose his head. Lately, he's been nearly driven mad trying to acquire the missing resources. So, you mean, the figure immediately understood. A trade. Zhou Qingong nodded repeatedly and placed his palms on the stone, transmitting a list of materials. Exactly. Boss, take a look, can we acquire these resources? There was a brief pause. After a moment, the figure spoke slowly, no problem. Good. With these materials, not only can we secure information about the protective formation, but we could even obtain the entire blueprint of the Immortal City. Zhou Qingong said confidently. The figure remained silent, but it was clear he was tempted. The importance of the formation diagram has already been downgraded by 2 levels. It's not a very lucrative trade now. After some thought, the figure instructed, if possible, try to find out from Li Fan what really happened on the day of the anomaly of 10,000 Immortals Island. And if you can get him to record the scene with a memory stone, even better. Zhou Qingong's expression shifted, and he asked curiously. Boss, was it as who took the entire 10,000 Immortals Island? That was terrifying. I regret not being there. If I had been, I could have returned home by now. By the way, what was the big commotion all about? What were we trying to find? The figure snorted coldly. You're asking about things you shouldn't know. Just do your job. Chapter 530. Zhou Qingong shrank his neck, indicating that he knew his mistake. Seeing this, the face in the air softened a little. This matter is of great importance. Even I cannot fully grasp all the details. However, one thing is certain, we have reaped significant rewards this time. His tone carried a trace of excitement. Even those above us have shown us more favor lately. The funding has been remarkably generous, more than doubled. And what about my share? Zhou Qingong hurriedly asked. HMPH, why are you so anxious? When have I ever shortchanged you? The face scolded. When we finalize the deal, the materials you need from Li Fan will be handed over to you along with your share. Thank you, boss, Zhou Qingong said gleefully. Although I'm doing quite well these days, frequently receiving gifts from cultivators, no one ever complains about having too much money. Enough, don't get carried away. I didn't expect you to become the commander this time. It seems like choosing He Zhenghao back then was indeed the right move. The face pondered for a moment, then added, He Zhenghao and Li Fan both have strong backgrounds. You must maintain good relations with them. When Kongyan Immortal Island is rebuilt, even if Li Fan doesn't become the true lord of the island, his status will undoubtedly be high. By staying close to him, you'll advance much faster than if you struggled on your own. Your future prospects are limitless. By then, you will have thoroughly infiltrated the enemy ranks. This time, we stepped in and helped them overcome their difficulties. Next time, they won't be able to refuse when we need them. The face let out a low, sinister laugh. You're brilliant, boss, Zhou Qingong praised. The two discussed the details of the transaction for a while longer, after which the face ended the communication. Zhou Qingong, acting nonchalantly, made his way back to the bustling construction site of Kongyan Immortal City, walking around as if showing off his authority. The image from the day of the anomaly on 10,000 Immortals Island, Li Fan thought for a moment and took out a memory stone. In his mind, the Dao stone emitted a flowing light, capturing every detail of what had transpired that day. In an instant, it was complete. Out of habit, Li Fan double-checked it. Upon reviewing it, however, he noticed something unusual. The recording couldn't capture the green light that destroyed the martial hall. When he reviewed the recording, all that could be seen was the entire structure and over a dozen cultivators inexplicably vanishing into thin air, while the surviving cultivators were in utter panic, scrambling to escape. Later, when Chief Lu arrived to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control, the scene appeared somewhat comical. Unrecordable, Li Fan tapped his fingers and fell into deep thought. After spending several centuries in the illusionary realm of the Grand Dao sect, Li Fan had learned many secrets that ordinary cultivators could not. Some of these had faded from memory upon his return to reality, but others still lingered in his mind. Just like it, hovering over Yuandao Prefecture, there are indeed terrifying existences in this world that cannot be recorded. Whether with pen and paper, jade slips, or any other method, it's impossible to document them. If the restriction is strong enough, they may even disappear from people's memories. But all of this is based on the premise that these things truly exist. A gleam of insight flashed in Li Fan's mind. It seems that a year ago, such unrecordable phenomena had not yet occurred. So, could it be that the mysterious web has already appeared in the world? Li Fan was slightly startled. If the massive Tianshuan spirit-locking formation hasn't been fully constructed yet, it's likely still in its early stages. For years, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance has been drawing its elite forces. Clearly, they've been busy. Even the unprecedented grand actions of the Five Elders Association must be connected to this. After a long period of contemplation, Li Fan looked at the memory stone in his hand and decided not to tamper with it further. It had been a long time since the anomaly with the mysterious web on 10,000 Immortals Island. Now, with the Five Elders Association bringing up the matter again, Li Fan suspected their goal was likely the missing Elder Gongsun. Not only the Five Elders Association, but even the 10,000 Immortal Alliance had been searching for him. To evade detection from the two most powerful forces in the Xuanwang realm for so long, Elder Gongsun Shishuan must be quite formidable. It's possible he's not intentionally hiding but is severely injured and has lost consciousness, Li Fan thought as he shook his head, dismissing the idea. Li Fan took the opportunity to hand the recording stone and the blueprint for Kongyun Immortal City's reconstruction to his clone, Zhou Qingong. 10 days later, Zhou Qingong delivered these highly confidential items to the stone-faced man. After verifying them, the man was ecstatic and didn't go back on his word, handing over a storage ring filled with strategic materials. With that, the crisis was easily resolved by Li Fan. With sufficient materials, the construction of Kongyun Immortal City sped up once more. Li Fan made frequent appearances to show his dedication to the project. The cultivators under him were full of enthusiasm. There was, however, one group that couldn't sit still. In a dark room aboard the dust-crossing boat. Zhou Kebao, this was your brilliant idea. Yeah, why are you putting on airs now? Don't you see that Kongyun City is almost finished? Weren't you so confident that Li Fan was just pretending to be calm? What do you have to say now? Zhou Kebao's face alternated between pale and flushed as he listened to his companions' constant rebukes. There's something fishy here, definitely something fishy. He defended. Not long ago, the information I gathered clearly stated that they were running out of resources. How is it that they suddenly have an abundance of materials? These are tightly controlled strategic resources. You can't just buy them. Zhou Kebao's face was full of confusion as his eyes darted, trying to unravel the secret. But his words clearly didn't convince everyone present. Forget all that. What do we do now? When Li Fan finishes building the Immortal City, our materials will be worthless. We'll lose everything, not to mention that if Li Fan reports us, what then? Zhou Kebao, you caused this mess, so you fix it. Go find Li Fan and negotiate. Amidst the cacophony of voices, Zhou Kebao was overwhelmed, the flash of inspiration he had felt slipping away before he could grasp it. Seeing no other option, Zhou Kebao sighed deeply and yielded. The next day, Zhou Kebao approached Li Fan. Instead of playing tricks, he sincerely explained the entire situation. Taoist Li, your move was brilliant. We lost fair and square. But this whole thing was Tantai Kan's idea from the beginning. We were just momentarily blinded, Zhou Kebao said in shame. Li Fan smiled but didn't speak. So, what do you want now? Chapter 532. You're the one who truly understands me, Taoist Zhou. Li Fan's previously stern expression softened into one of extreme kindness. You modern cultivators really know how to innovate. I guess I'm still a bit of an old fossil. He patted Zhou Kebao on the shoulder, his admiration evident. If you can actually pull this off, all past grudges will be wiped clean. We might even work together more closely in the future, it's not impossible. Your background is strong, but I'm not lacking either. Li Fan's face showed a hint of pride as he painted a grand picture for Zhou Kebao, who couldn't help but believe him. After all, gathering such a large amount of strategic resources in such a short time was not something an ordinary cultivator could manage. As someone who benefited from power and influence, Zhou Kebao was well aware that in the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, connections and background were sometimes more important than cultivation strength. Come, explain the details more thoroughly. Li Fan pulled Zhou Kebao closer, clearly very interested in the mobile Immortal City cave residence. Seeing how smoothly the negotiation was going, Zhou Kebao was overjoyed. He didn't dare delay and began pointing to the images in the air, enlarging each part and explaining it in detail. After a long time, Zhou Kebao was parched from all the talking. Finally, Li Fan nodded in satisfaction. If someone finds out, will the higher-ups blame us? After a moment of silence, Li Fan asked. Haha, don't worry, Taoist Li. The law says that anything not explicitly forbidden is allowed. There are no rules or regulations in the 10,000 Immortal Alliance that prohibit cultivators from mimicking Immortal City structures to build cave residences. Zhou Kebao assured repeatedly. As long as you stay low-key and don't show off, who would bother causing you trouble? Of course, if someone does report it and things get out of hand, we can just demolish it. Once the storm passes, we'll rebuild it for you. Zhou Kebao's face was full of smug confidence. Excellent, I feel more and more like you, Taoist Zhou, or a kindred spirit. Li Fan smiled faintly. He took out a blank jade slip and held it in his hand for a while before handing it to Zhou Kebao. This contains my additional requirements for the Immortal City Cave residence. Go back and calculate the costs, then quickly send me a quotation. If there aren't any major issues, we'll finalize the deal. However, if you still think you can take advantage of me, then it'll be a fight to the death. A flash of murderous intent briefly appeared in Li Fan's eyes. Rest assured, Taoist Li, I understand. Zhou Kebao, overjoyed, accepted the jade slip and took a quick glance before eagerly excusing himself. What a bunch of parasites. Watching Zhou Kebao leave, Li Fan sneered softly. But what does it matter to me? I should be thanking them. Without these parasites, how else would I get benefits out of this strictly regulated 10,000 Immortal Alliance? With a cold laugh, Li Fan gently pointed forward. A miniature version of the Immortal City Cave residence reappeared, perfectly replicated from what he had just seen, combined with the real Kongyan Immortal City. A floating city of my own. This is a treasure that came to me effortlessly. Li Fan squinted slightly, adding annotations to the floating city model according to his own ideas. Time passed quickly. 3 days later, Zhou Kebao hurried back with a prepared quotation. 18,630,000 contribution points. Li Fan muttered. Afraid that Li Fan would think it was too expensive, Zhou Kebao quickly explained, this only covers the cost of your additional requests and some labor. The materials for the Immortal City construction are entirely at our expense. We've really gone all out to reconcile with you, Taoist. Li Fan was unimpressed. Spare me the talk. In the entire 10,000 Immortal Alliance, who besides me, Li Fan, would dare to use an Immortal City as a cave residence? If I don't proceed with this, those materials of yours will just sit in a warehouse as dead stock. But now, you can convert them into contribution points. Zhou Kebao dared not argue, only nodding in agreement. 18,630,000 is a bit steep. Let's settle on 15 million. Li Fan boldly proposed. If that works, great. If not, let's pretend we never discussed this. Zhou Kebao's face changed dramatically upon hearing this. After much hesitation and internal struggle, he finally gritted his teeth and agreed. He then took out a golden contract, made some adjustments, and handed it over. Li Fan reviewed it carefully. In addition to Zhou Kebao's name, it also listed 8 other cultivators, including Go Zihao and Ku Dailong. Once he confirmed everything was in order, Li Fan signed his name. As 2 beams of golden light flew into their bodies, Zhou Kebao finally breathed a sigh of relief. According to the agreement, Li Fan first transferred 5 million contribution points. When will the Immortal City Cave residence be completed? Li Fan asked Zhou Kebao, whose face could barely contain his joy. It will be ready the day Kongyan Immortal City is completed, Zhou Kebao promised. So soon. This time, Li Fan was surprised. After all, he had gathered all the available cultivators from the Kongyan Sea, working day and night, just to meet the deadline set by the First Ordinance Di Jinglan. Now, less than 2 months remained before the city's completion. To finish the cave residence within such a short time seemed impossible. And yet, Zhou Kebao spoke with such confidence. Their efficiency must be much higher than Li Fan's hastily assembled team. Seeing Li Fan's rare expression of surprise, Zhou Kebao felt proud but said nothing. All right, in that case, I'll wait for the day of double celebration. You may go now. Li Fan dismissed Zhou Kebao, who bowed and left without delay. Time flew by, and the day of Kongyan Immortal City's completion drew nearer. The busy cultivators couldn't help but show anticipation on their faces. After all, they had been working so hard, looking forward to the reconstruction of Kongyan City, the rewards from Island Lord Li Fan, and the appointment of positions. Li Fan had not forgotten the Di Jinglan's task, fully integrating the Xuantian Nether Lock Formation into the foundation of the Immortal City without drawing any attention. As the grand ceremony for the city's foundation approached, Li Fan found himself alone in a secret chamber and suddenly felt a spiritual resonance. It turned out that the fallen immortal realm, which he hadn't entered for a long time, was now open to him again. Blessings to the heavenly Venerable of Xuanwang. Li Fan performed the ritual and re-entered the fallen immortal realm. The story picked up from last time. He and Shu Ke were entrusted by Luya to head to the Nanming Beast Mountain. Xiao He, why do you think senior brother Luya entrusted me with such an important task? This Nanming Beast Mountain is no easy place. According to the other senior brothers, it's full of terrifying demon beasts. Wouldn't a more powerful senior brother be a better choice? Shu Kei tilted his head, his big eyes filled with confusion. Li Fan gave him a playful slap. Can you be quiet? This is the 10th time you've asked that question on this trip. I don't understand why you didn't just ask your senior brother Luya. Why keep bothering me? Shu Kei pouted, that's not true. This is only the 9th time. As they were bantering, a loud dragon roar suddenly echoed from the distant sky. It interrupted their conversation. Gazing into the distance, the horizon seemed to blur where the sea met the sky, making it difficult to distinguish between water and heavens. The thunderous roar, like that of a dragon, seemed to come from the clouds above. Through the gaps in the clouds, one could faintly glimpse a part of the blue dragon's scales and claws. Its body stretched endlessly, seemingly extending to the edge of the sky. The dragon's tail, revealed by chance, appeared as large as a mountain in the eyes of the two onlookers. Shu Kei stared in shock, his head tilted upwards, his body wobbling slightly. How is this dragon so huge? I've seen azure dragons in the sect before, but compared to this one, those can't even be called dragons. More like little mud eels. Shu Kei, not entirely clueless, knew that this was the territory of demonic beasts, and quietly whispered to Li Fan. The divine dragon reveals its head but not its tail. Li Fan ignored him. He kept his gaze fixed on the azure dragon in the sky, searching his memories linked to the bloodline of the Zon bird. This azure dragon had existed for ages, almost comparable to the lifespan of the longevity Emperor Sanmo. Unlike Sanmo, who served as a prophet to guide the demonic beasts, this azure divine dragon never interfered with the internal affairs of the demonic beasts. It played more of a guardian deity role, rarely appearing in the world. Only when the demonic beasts faced an existential threat did it lend its aid. The azure divine dragon usually conceals itself in waves or clouds. Why has it suddenly let out such a roar today? It seems something major is happening in the Nanming. To arrive just in time, truly the fate of someone destined. While Li Fan pondered, he gave Shu Kei a light slap. Shu Kei, feeling puzzled, wanted to retaliate, but was quickly suppressed by Li Fan. The Luan bird beneath Shu Kei seemed to let out a helpless sigh. Its speed did not diminish, continuing to fly south at full speed. The Nanming area was vast and boundless. Apart from the sky overhead, all one could see was the endless blue ocean. After flying for over 10 days, the scenery remained unchanged. Not only had they not seen the Beast Mountain, but they hadn't even encountered any ordinary demonic beasts. Instead, they occasionally saw schools of strange fish surfacing, laughing playfully. Some of these fish even chased the shadow cast by Shu Kei and his group, following them along the water. However, these fish were clearly not demonic beasts, relying solely on instinct as their intelligence had not yet developed. Xiaohei, where exactly is this Beast Mountain? Shu Kei propped his chin on his hands, looking bored. Senior brother Luya didn't explain clearly, he just told me to keep heading south. I actually believed him. How frustrating. Just as Li Fan was about to respond, his expression suddenly changed. From behind, a wave of killing intent mixed with a strong scent of blood rushed toward them. He immediately turned, spitting out a black light to counter the attack. "Huh!" A voice of surprise came from the attacker. Boom! Amid the explosion, the Luan bird finally reacted. It let out an angry cry, spreading its wings to shield Shu Kei. Li Fan flew into the air, observing the attacker from afar. It was a two-headed bird. Its feathers were pure white, and one of its heads was wide-eyed, its gaze shifting rapidly between Shu Kei's group. The other head seemed to be asleep, eyes tightly shut, nodding off in a rather comical manner. So, it's from the Zon bird tribe. I haven't seen one in so long, and it's turned into this. Truly ugly beyond belief. The two-headed bird sneered in a sharp voice. Man, Li Fan immediately recognized the bird. It had some family ties to the Zon bird tribe. Named Man, though its name didn't sound impressive, its origins were quite extraordinary. Its left head was said to be able to see the cause and effect of all things, while the right head remained in a perpetual state of sleep. Once it sensed disaster, it would awaken suddenly. However, most Man birds had green feathers with a hint of red. This pure white one was extremely rare. No wonder it found Li Fan ugly. It was the complete opposite of Li Fan, who was entirely pitch black. Although, in terms of seniority within the demonic beast tribe, this bird might be considered Li Fan's elder. Yet, faced with the sudden attack and ridicule from this white man bird, Li Fan certainly wasn't about to show any respect. Strange, why does it sound like a duck quacking? Quack quack, how annoying and noisy. Li Fan pretended not to see the man bird, looking around in confusion and disdain, then turned to Shu Ke. Shu Ke blinked for a moment before clapping his hands and laughing. You're right, I heard it too. They say the beast mountain of the Nanming is sacred ground for demonic beasts. How could it allow such a rude duck to wander in? Truly odd. Hearing their mocking banter, the man bird was furious. You two little brats, who are you calling a duck? I am the noble and revered man bird. A rare pure white variant, you. But no matter what it said, Li Fan and Shu Ke just kept shaking their heads, looking at it with disgust. The white man bird was about to explode with rage, preparing to attack again. However, as if it had suddenly thought of something, it held back. Zon bird tribe, I'll remember you. It glared at Li Fan and flapped its wings, flying off ahead. Li Fan and Shu Ke exchanged glances, quickly urging their own bird to follow. Not long after, the man bird noticed they were still following. Why are you still tailing me? Do you think I'm easy to bully? Li Fan sneered. Strange. The world is vast, and all beasts roam freely. Since when did your man bird tribe claim ownership of the skies? Are others not allowed to follow the same path? Before the white man bird could respond, a strange laugh suddenly echoed from the horizon, arriving in an instant. Ha ha ha, that little one makes a good point. It seems your man bird tribe has grown too arrogant. The white man bird's eyes gleamed with fury, murderous intent brimming. But when it saw the newcomer, its ferocity immediately subsided. The creature before them was a bird, yet it had the body of a dog and the face of a human. As it flew, the sound of rushing wind followed. It was none other than one of the famous, Daifeng, birds. Ha ha ha, the Daifeng bird landed, laughing heartily once again. Its gaze lingered briefly on Li Fan before finally resting on Shu Ke. A flicker of interest crossed its eyes. A human child, what brings you to the territory of demonic beasts? Seemed to blur where the sea met the sky, making it difficult to distinguish between water and heavens. The thunderous roar, like that of a dragon, seemed to come from the clouds above. Through the gaps in the clouds, one could faintly glimpse a part of the blue dragon's scales and claws. Its body stretched endlessly, seemingly extending to the edge of the sky. The dragon's tail, revealed by chance, appeared as large as a mountain in the eyes of the two onlookers. Shu Ke stared in shock, his head tilted upwards, his body wobbling slightly. How is this dragon so huge? I've seen azure dragons in the sect before, but compared to this one, those can't even be called dragons. More like little mud eels. Shu Ke, not entirely clueless, knew that this was the territory of demonic beasts, and quietly whispered to Li Fan. The divine dragon reveals its head but not its tail. Li Fan ignored him. He kept his gaze fixed on the azure dragon in the sky, searching his memories linked to the bloodline of the Zon bird. This azure dragon had existed for ages, almost comparable to the lifespan of the longevity Emperor Sanmo. Unlike Sanmo, who served as a prophet to guide the demonic beasts, this azure divine dragon never interfered with the internal affairs of the demonic beasts. It played more of a guardian deity role, rarely appearing in the world. Only when the demonic beasts faced an existential threat did it lend its aid. The azure divine dragon usually conceals itself in waves or clouds. Why has it suddenly let out such a roar today? It seems something major is happening in the Nanming. To arrive just in time, truly the fate of someone destined. While Li Fan pondered, he gave Shu Ke a light slap. Shu Ke, feeling puzzled, wanted to retaliate, but was quickly suppressed by Li Fan. The Luan bird beneath Shu Ke seemed to let out a helpless sigh. Its speed did not diminish, continuing to fly south at full speed. The Nanming area was vast and boundless. Apart from the sky overhead, all one could see was the endless blue ocean. After flying for over 10 days, the scenery remained unchanged. Not only had they not seen the beast mountain, but they hadn't even encountered any ordinary demonic beasts. Instead, they occasionally saw schools of strange fish surfacing, laughing playfully. Some of these fish even chased the shadow cast by Shu Ke and his group, following them along the water. However, these fish were clearly not demonic beasts, relying solely on instinct as their intelligence had not yet developed. Xiaohei, where exactly is this beast mountain? Shu Ke propped his chin on his hands, looking bored. Senior brother Lu Ya didn't explain clearly, he just told me to keep heading south. I actually believed him. How frustrating. Just as Li Fan was about to respond, his expression suddenly changed. From behind, a wave of killing intent mixed with a strong scent of blood rushed toward them. He immediately turned, spitting out a black light to counter the attack. "Huh!" A voice of surprise came from the attacker. Boom! Amid the explosion, the Luan bird finally reacted. It let out an angry cry, spreading its wings to shield Shu Ke. Li Fan flew into the air, observing the attacker from afar. It was a two-headed bird. Its feathers were pure white, and one of its heads was wide-eyed, its gaze shifting rapidly between Shu Ke's group. The other head seemed to be asleep, eyes tightly shut, nodding off in a rather comical manner. "So, it's from the Zon bird tribe. I haven't seen one in so long, and it's turned into this. Truly ugly beyond belief." The two-headed bird sneered in a sharp voice. Man. Li Fan immediately recognized the bird. It had some family ties to the Zon bird tribe. Named Man, though its name didn't sound impressive, its origins were quite extraordinary. Its left head was said to be able to see the cause and effect of all things, while the right head remained in a perpetual state of sleep. Once it sensed disaster, it would awaken suddenly. However, most Man birds had green feathers with a hint of red. This pure white one was extremely rare. No wonder it found Li Fan ugly. It was the complete opposite of Li Fan, who was entirely pitch black. Although, in terms of seniority within the demonic beast tribe, this bird might be considered Li Fan's elder. Yet, faced with the sudden attack and ridicule from this white Man bird, Li Fan certainly wasn't about to show any respect. Strange, why does it sound like a duck quacking? Quack quack, how annoying and noisy. Li Fan pretended not to see the Man bird, looking around in confusion and disdain, then turned to Shu Ke. Shu Ke blinked for a moment before clapping his hands and laughing. "You're right, I heard it too. They say the beast mountain of the Nanming is sacred ground for demonic beasts. How could it allow such a rude duck to wander in? Truly odd." Hearing their mocking banter, the Man bird was furious. "You two little brats, who are you calling a duck? I am the noble and revered Man bird. A rare pure white variant, you." But no matter what it said, Li Fan and Shu Ke just kept shaking their heads, looking at it with disgust. The white Man bird was about to explode with rage, preparing to attack again. However, as if it had suddenly thought of something, it held back. "Zon bird tribe, I'll remember you." It glared at Li Fan and flapped its wings, flying off ahead. Li Fan and Shu Ke exchanged glances, quickly urging their own bird to follow. Not long after, the Man bird noticed they were still following. "Why are you still tailing me? Do you think I'm easy to bully?" Li Fan sneered. "Strange. The world is vast, and all beasts roam freely. Since when did your Man bird tribe claim ownership of the skies? Are others not allowed to follow the same path?" Before the white Man bird could respond, a strange laugh suddenly echoed from the horizon, arriving in an instant. "Ha ha ha, that little one makes a good point. It seems your Man bird tribe has grown too arrogant." The white Man bird's eyes gleamed with fury, murderous intent brimming. But when it saw the newcomer, its ferocity immediately subsided. The creature before them was a bird, yet it had the body of a dog and the face of a human. As it flew, the sound of rushing wind followed. It was none other than one of the famous, Daifeng, birds. Ha ha ha, the Daifeng bird landed, laughing heartily once again. Its gaze lingered briefly on Li Fan before finally resting on Shu Ke. A flicker of interest crossed its eyes. "A human child, what brings you to the territory of demonic beasts?" Chapter 534. Could it be that you are also here to attend the 10,000 Beasts Conference? The giant bird, Daifeng, ignored the nearby Man bird and asked in a friendly tone. "What 10,000 Beasts Conference? I have no idea. I was entrusted by my senior brother, Lu Ya, to deliver this wooden box to you." Shu Ke's eyes shifted around as he stared at Daifeng, pretending to be innocent as he spoke. "Lu Ya." Daifeng tilted its head, thinking for a moment, seemingly unable to recall anyone by that name. "Sounds somewhat familiar. What wooden box? Let me take a look," it said nonchalantly. "Sure." Shu Ke, appearing carefree and defenseless, pulled out a vermilion wooden box. An ancient and desolate aura immediately emanated from the box. "This is..." Daifeng's body shuddered uncontrollably, almost losing its balance and nearly falling into the sea. The white Man bird, at first, didn't recognize it either. But after carefully examining the wooden box, it soon let out a sharp screech. Its feathers stood on end, as if it had been greatly agitated. Just as it was about to say something, Daifeng swiftly flapped its wings, sending a gust of wind to silence it. Hee, so it was sent by that person. Quick, little one, put it away. If others catch sight of it, there will be trouble. Without further questioning the contents of the box, Daifeng awkwardly coughed and hurriedly advised Shuke. Okay, Shuke obediently put the wooden box back. Senior, we're heading to the Nanming Beast Mountain, but we've lost our way. Could you take us there? He blinked his eyes, rubbing the back of his head, looking a bit embarrassed. Ahem, young one, didn't your elders instruct you before setting out? It's not called the Nanming Beast Mountain, that sounds so crude. It's the Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain. Daifeng corrected him sternly. To show such disrespect for the Sacred Beast Mountain, you're lucky you met me, someone with a good temper. If you ran into one of the more violent ones, you'd be captured on the spot, have your stomach cut open, your heart devoured, and your liver eaten. Daifeng warned, trying to scare him. Shuke tilted his head, thinking for a moment, confused. But Grandpa San said not to worry when we get here, to feel at home. That's how everyone at home talks. Grandpa San, Daifeng choked on its words, unsure how to respond. The once arrogant man bird also shrunk its head back, pretending it had heard nothing. Hee, as long as you're happy, kid. In the end, Daifeng could only smile wryly and say no more. The group continued heading southward. Along the way, Shuke kept chattering, constantly asking Daifeng for information. Senior, what exactly is the 10,000 Beasts Conference you mentioned? Daifeng initially didn't want to answer, but Shuke's persistence left it no choice. Reluctantly, it whispered, not long ago, Lord Emperor One announced to the world that the 10,000 Beasts Conference would be held. All beast clans must send representatives to the Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain to participate. It's said that this concerns the life and death of the beast clans, and it's the first time in hundreds of years that Lord Emperor One has called such a gathering. It's extremely important. Even usually reclusive beings like Lord Azure Dragon, Lord Scarlet Ninehead, and Lord Purple Headless are coming. The last time we had such a grand gathering was during the public trial of Emperor San. Daifeng stopped mid-sentence, its expression suddenly changing as it quickly fell silent. Li Fan and Shuke exchanged glances, understanding instantly. It seemed that even someone with Emperor Sanmo's status faced serious consequences when interacting too closely with humans. No wonder both the man bird and Daifeng were so cautious about even mentioning Emperor Sanmo. However, it was clear that the public trial had not been successful against Emperor Sanmo. Otherwise, when Shuke took out the sealed wooden box bearing Emperor Sanmo's mark, Daifeng and the others wouldn't have shown such a mix of fear and respect. Moving away from this topic, Shuke continued pestering Daifeng with questions about the beast clans. He asked where they usually resided, how they interacted with humans, their future plans, and their views on the beast-taming sect. After the earlier slip, Daifeng became more cautious, only sharing trivial and irrelevant information with Shuke. Thus, more than 10 days passed. Finally, the legendary Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain came into view. From a distance, at the junction of the blue sky and sea, a towering conical mountain appeared out of thin air. It stood in the middle of the sea, like a mirage, incredibly mysterious. The mountain's peak was crowned with a thick layer of white snow. At the snow-covered summit, a magnificent city could faintly be seen. Li Fan, with his keen eyes, also noticed that the Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain marked the boundary of the entire Nanming Ocean. It was a sight beyond words. The vast, endless sea abruptly stopped at this point. Beyond it lay a dark abyss, like a black void. The Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain stood at the boundary between light and dark, reality and illusion, separating the real world from the dreamlike realm. Daifeng, seeing Shuke awestruck by the magnificent view, couldn't help but feel proud. How does it look? Never seen such a wondrous sight, have you? The so-called ends of the earth, the world's frontier, the source of all life, this is our Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain. Daifeng sighed with emotion. It's said that the first beasts in the world originated here before spreading across the world. This is a sacred place for all beasts, not to be desecrated. Even though you were sent by an important figure, your human identity cannot be changed. You may not be allowed to enter. Hee, Daifeng is right. Even you, little black bird, though a beast, have been tamed by humans and serve as a companion spirit beast. You too are not qualified to enter the Sacred Beast Mountain. The previously quiet man bird suddenly perked up and mocked. With a strange cry, it flapped its wings and flew towards the distant mountain peak, leaving Shuke behind. Shuke didn't seem to mind. He waved a jade token hanging around his neck. No worries, before I left, senior brother Luya told me that if I encounter any trouble, just show them this token. Senior brother Luya would never deceive me. Shao Qing, let's go. Daifeng was about to advise him further when it suddenly realized something, its eyes widening in shock, even more so than when it sensed Emperor Sanmo's aura. For it had clearly seen a fleeting glimpse of the jade token, which bore a symbol that only beasts could recognize, the character, 1. Daifeng finally remembered where it had heard the name Luya before. It was over a decade ago, when a lone human had entered the sacred beast mountain, and then left unscathed. This event caused quite a stir at the time, creating a huge uproar throughout the entire world of beasts. No beast wanted to believe that a human could come and go freely within the sacred beast mountain. But the fact was undeniable. This cultivator named Luya not only ventured into the sacred mountain but also took away a junior from the Tianwu tribe with the purest bloodline. What made it even harder for the beasts to accept was that at the time, Luya was merely at the early stage of the nascent soul level. This made the whole situation even more absurd. Forget about the early nascent soul stage, even if he were at the nascent soul perfection stage, what of it? Any adult beast on the sacred beast mountain could easily crush him with just a flick of a claw. How could they allow such arrogance from a human cultivator? Although there were rumors later on that Luya was able to freely enter and leave the Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain due to the tacit approval of the Emperor 1, it still didn't sit well with the Beast clan. As the nominal ruler of the entire beast race, Emperor 1 held a status of utmost reverence. Many young beasts with pure bloodlines and exceptional talent couldn't even catch his eye. What right did this mere human cultivator have? It took over a decade for the waves stirred by this event to gradually calm down. And the name Luya became etched into the memories of many beasts. Although the Daifeng bird was known for its forgetfulness, when both the name, Luya, and the Emperor 1's jade token appeared simultaneously, it instantly remembered the events from back then. It seems the rumors were indeed true. Luya really had a close relationship with Emperor 1. The Daifeng bird let out a strange laugh, flapped its wings, and followed Shuke as they flew into the sacred mountain. The Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain seemed to contain some sort of special energy that greatly benefited the beasts. The closer they got to it, the more energized Li Fan felt. It was as if something deep within him was joyfully stirring, making his blood boil and filling him with boundless energy. Even the azure Luan bird beneath Shuke felt the same. It let out a loud, joyous cry, its speed increasing noticeably in an instant. In no time, they had arrived. Shuke's group had entered the bounds of the Sacred Beast Mountain, but just then, little Qing suddenly stiffened in midair, motionless. At the same time, Li Fan felt a fatal sense of danger surge in his heart. Yet Shuke seemed completely unaware of the danger, still shouting excitedly, "Xiao He, look! What is that?" Li Fan's body felt petrified, unable to move. He could only barely turn his eyes to follow Shuke's gaze. What he saw was a massive snake coiled around the Sacred Beast Mountain. Its body was fiery red, incredibly striking and demonic. The red snake's body was enormous, and what they could see seemed to be only part of its seemingly endless form, with most of it hidden beneath the blue waters of the Nanming Sea. It was a sight that inspired fear in all who beheld it. What was even more shocking was that before entering the Nanming Sacred Beast Mountain, no one had noticed its presence. It was as if it had appeared out of thin air. The red snake's single eye was now coldly staring at the azure Luan bird and the human passengers it carried. The immense pressure forced Li Fan to instinctively close his eyes. Yet Shuke remained completely unfazed, staring boldly back at the red snake. After a tense standoff, a faint glow emanated from the jade token in Shuke's hand. The red snake's eye shifted slightly before it slowly closed. In an instant, the azure Luan bird regained its mobility. Li Fan felt the pressure on his body lift abruptly and let out a small sigh of relief. But when he looked again, the massive red snake, larger than a mountain, had already vanished. It was as if that terrifying moment had been nothing more than a hallucination. However, Li Fan knew that the one-eyed red snake was still coiled around the Sacred Beast Mountain. They just couldn't see it anymore. If it weren't for that Emperor 1 jade token, even a cultivator at the Dao integration stage would be dead or crippled here, Li Fan thought to himself in shock. Shuke, however, remained carefree and oblivious, urging the azure Luan bird to descend into the mountain. Wow, it feels so comfortable here, Shu Kei exclaimed as he landed, taking a deep breath and savoring the atmosphere. It was well known that staying on the sacred beast mountain brought some mysterious benefits to beasts. This time, he didn't bother to put little Qing away, instead letting her shrink down to a small size and settle next to Li Fan. Li Fan glanced at her, and for a moment, a vision of the Azure Saint Master from thousands of years in the future flashed in his mind. He smiled but said nothing. Little Qing seemed a bit frightened of Li Fan, the heavenly fate mystical bird. Occasionally, she cast a nervous glance his way, her eyes filled with fear. She instinctively kept her distance, not daring to get too close. Shu Kei, for the moment, ignored the two birds perched above him. He dashed along the mountain path toward the grand city ahead. Along the way, they encountered many strange and bizarre beasts. There were horse-bodied, bird-winged creatures, human-faced, snake-tailed beings, some resembling tigers with howling dog-like cries, others like black crows with 3 heads and 6 tails, and some like deer with white tails, horse legs, human hands, and 4 horns. Some of the beasts were even plants or trees that had gained sentience, radiating divine and ethereal auras. But no matter how fierce or malevolent these beasts appeared, all of them moved cautiously and respectfully along the mountain path, not daring to act out of line. Thus, Shu Kei's reckless running stood out. Some beasts looked at him with killing intent, wanting to teach this reckless brat a lesson. But sensing the aura of the Emperor One on him, none of them dared to make a move. So Shu Kei continued sprinting, finally arriving at the base of the grand city atop the mountain. This city, atop the sacred mountain, was made from some unknown material. Its entire body was pure white, exuding a sacred and majestic presence under the sunlight. Beyond the white city was originally just a high wall, without any gate. But as the group approached, a face suddenly appeared on the wall. The face opened its mouth, revealing a pitch-black passageway. Shu Kei stopped in his tracks. He stretched out his neck and peered inside but couldn't see anything. While he muttered to himself, a strange beast walked past with a mocking expression and entered the passage. Shu Kei pouted but quickly gathered his courage and followed the beast into the white city of the sacred mountain. The light vanished, then reappeared. "Follow me." A soft, childish voice suddenly sounded in Li Fan's ear. Ahead of him stood a small child, around 5 or 6 years old, with an adorably delicate face, making it impossible to tell their gender. The child stood with his hands on his hips, addressing Shu Kei. The small child immediately caught Shu Kei's attention. His eyes widened as he stared at the child, curiously approaching and reaching out to pinch the child's cheek. He asked with great curiosity, "Are you also human? How did you end up on this beast mountain?" The child tilted his head and raised his hand to pinch Shu Kei's face in return. "Who says humans can't live on Beast Mountain? Aren't you a mere mortal, yet you arrived here safe and sound?" The child replied seriously. Shu Kei was momentarily stunned but then quickly agreed with the child's words. Clapping his hands in delight, he said, "You're right. Humans and beasts can live in harmony. That's how it is in our sect. I imagine it must be the same here in the Nanming Beast Mountain." The child looked at him with a hint of innocence in his eyes and shook his head. "The beast-taming sect? I've heard that the human cultivators in your beast-taming sect rely on the beast control technique to forcibly bind and control the beasts. Many beasts don't willingly become their companion beasts. They are just controlled by techniques and have no choice. Is that what you call harmonious coexistence?" The child asked seriously. Shu Kei, hearing this, quickly waved his hands in protest, flustered, "It's not like that." He opened his mouth to refute, but for a moment, he didn't know where to start. Suddenly, something occurred to him. He grabbed the small black creature perched on his head and proudly presented it to the child like a treasure. "Look, this is Xiaohei, Little Black, we have a great relationship. Even though he became my companion spirit beast due to the beast control technique," Shu Kei continued, "our bond is real. Isn't that right, Xiaohei?" Shu Kei shook his hand, trying to make Xiaohei show approval. However, Xiaohei merely flew back to perch on Shu Kei's head and gave him a sharp claw to make him quiet down in pain. Ignoring Shu Kei's antics, Li Fan kept staring at the child, who was as exquisitely beautiful as jade, with growing suspicion in his heart. His intuition told him that this child had a significant background and was not as simple as an ordinary mortal. Yet, there was no trace of a beast's aura on the child. Even when Li Fan used his innate powers to observe, the child's fortune pillar looked as ordinary as that of a mortal, which left him perplexed. Seeing how well the master and servant in front of him were getting along, the child giggled, seeming very happy. Follow me, the paths in the city are complicated. Be careful not to get eaten, the child reminded again. With that, the child turned and walked inside. Shuke hurriedly followed. The surroundings were eerily quiet, with no trace of other beasts. The beasts that had been with them earlier had all disappeared without a trace. Only the sound of 2 pairs of footsteps echoed in the empty city, one pair ahead of the other. They climbed several dozen flights of stairs, and after an unknown amount of time, the child led Zook into a room. As they entered, the walls instantly became transparent. It felt as if they were suspended in midair. The view was magnificent, with the surrounding scenery laid out before them. Below, the space was densely packed with countless beasts of various shapes and sizes. They seemed to be engaged in a heated debate. Silence. Below where Zook stood, several large orbs of light hovered. Within the light, faint silhouettes could be seen. The speaker was a crimson 9-headed bird. Its voice was harsh and grating, like metal scraping against metal. However, its status among the beasts appeared to be high, for as soon as it spoke, the beasts fell silent. Everyone, let us welcome the great Emperor One, who, after many years, has once again summoned the 10,000 beasts to convene the council. Boom. At its words, the entire space erupted as all the beasts simultaneously roared with excitement, expressing their joy. In the sky, a massive shadow descended. A wriggling mass, with heads intermittently emerging and disappearing, like a gray, flesh mound, loomed over the gathered beasts like a cloud. All the beasts present fell silent, bowing their heads in respect. This is Emperor One Beast. Shuke stuck out his tongue as he stared at the flesh mound below. Why does it look so ugly? He lowered his voice, cautiously whispering. The child next to him heard this and wasn't angry. Instead, he nodded in agreement with a giggle. Hee, I think so too. It is quite ugly. Li Fan's heart skipped a beat. To dare call the most revered beast in the heart of the Beast Mountain ugly, in the heart of the beasts' territory, this child. Before Li Fan could think further, the words of the Emperor One Beast below drew his attention. My fellow kin, I have summoned you here today because the time has come to decide the life and death of the beast race. Emperor One's voice was peculiar. It came from all parts of the flesh mound, as if it was made up of thousands of overlapping voices. Yet, when carefully listened to, the voices were indistinguishable, merging into one seamless tone. It sounded mechanical, yet lively, a strange combination. Emperor One continued, the great calamity of the Xuanwang realm is approaching. This disaster will be more brutal than any before. Not only humanity but we beasts, and even the entire world, face an existential crisis. Even though our bloodline memories hold abundant experience in dealing with calamities, I fear we will not escape this one unscathed. Hearing this, the beasts below erupted into another uproar. The flesh mound shifted, and light and shadow flickered above the heads of the beasts. The beasts quickly quieted down again. So, for the future of our race, I need to hear your thoughts. From the orbs of light below the flesh cloud, a beast that bore a striking resemblance to Emperor One, also a round, ball-shaped creature without facial features, spoke up. Emperor One, whatever you say, we will follow. I, Zi Wushu, will always be your most loyal subordinate. With Zi Wushu's declaration, many beasts below chimed in, echoing their support. Oh, what if I decide to lead you away from the Xuanwang realm in search of a new home? Emperor One suddenly asked coldly, surprising the beasts. What? Zi Wushu was clearly caught off guard by Emperor Yi's statement and stood there dumbfounded. Before it could respond, an elderly azure divine dragon beside it quickly spoke up. Emperor One, why would you do that? With the strength of our beast race, are we really unable to survive this so-called great calamity? Exactly. We've survived countless disasters. Besides, even if we leave, where would we go? At this moment, the speaker was a pitch-black Qilin, majestic and imposing in form but with a voice as crisp as a child's. On top of the gathering of myriad beasts sat Emperor One, who let out a low, rumbling laugh upon hearing the black Qilin's doubts. Experience, as they say, is a double-edged sword. It grants us the confidence to face crises, yet subtly pushes us toward the abyss. A black, amorphous mass stirred, seemingly expressing its discontent. This calamity is unlike any of the ones we've faced in history. Its origins lie in. At this point, a grotesque multitude of fierce beasts began to emerge from Emperor One's mass. Shut up, you! Why waste breath on these useless creatures? Those who don't obey, devour them all. What? 10,000 beast clan. With only me, Emperor 1, it's enough. This unsettling scene silenced all attending beasts, though none of them seemed surprised by the outburst. There was fear in their eyes, but no shock. The black mass churned once more, swallowing the snarling heads back within itself, as Emperor 1 resumed, unfazed. As such, this catastrophe surpasses what the Xuanwang realm itself can resolve. If no additional factors intervene, everything in this world will end in extinction. Emperor 1's serious tone commanded the full attention of the assembled beasts, who all grew solemn. However, since I said I would lead you to survival, I naturally have a way out. Emperor 1's voice, as if resonating from countless forms, echoed through the space. Among the human cultivators, there is a sect called the Heavenly Sword Sect. In the face of this great catastrophe, they hope to seize a chance of survival by creating a void-breaking divine weapon, a tool capable of shattering space-time itself, allowing them to escape from Xuanwang. Setting aside the feasibility of their plan, it has inspired me. This mountain beneath us happens to be a natural, void-breaking divine weapon. With some modifications, it could lead us to escape as well, Emperor 1 declared confidently. Mount Nanming stands at the edge of the world, at the land's end and sea's edge. Thus, it has accumulated a great deal of energy from the world's natural overflow. De began to explain the principles to the beasts. None dared to slacken their attention, regardless of their true thoughts, each wore a serious expression. In the transparent room above, Shu Ke yawned as he listened. How boring. Why do these powerful beasts love to drone on? Not impressive at all, he muttered quietly. Turning to the child beside him, who was even smaller than himself, he asked, why did you bring us here? Isn't this an internal meeting of the beast clan? Isn't it bad for us to eavesdrop? It's fine, it won't mind. The child looked down at the speaking Emperor 1 beast and said lightly. Although Shu Ke was naturally carefree, he was no fool. He glanced around cautiously and whispered, from the way you talk, you seem pretty familiar with Lord Emperor 1. Could it be that you're its illegitimate child? Think that if you wish, the child replied openly, much to Shu Ke's surprise. Shu Ke froze in shock. Or rather, I am Emperor 1. But I am not Emperor 1, the child added. Shu Ke's eyes widened in disbelief. Li Fan, too, shifted his attention from Emperor 1's speech below to the child in front of him. Though he had his suspicions, it was shocking to think that the Supreme Beast Lord would take on a human form. Emperor 1, seeing Shu Ke and Li Fan's astonished expressions, flashed a mysterious smile. What's the matter? Surprised, Shu Ke nodded repeatedly. There's no need for that. All life, at its essence, is ultimately one. Beast or human, there is no fundamental difference. Emperor 1 continued, casually stating something shocking. Li Fan thought that, in this sacred land of beasts, if anyone other than the Beast Lord himself said such a thing, they'd likely be devoured by the furious beasts on the spot. It's almost amusing that it took me so long to realize this. The childlike Emperor 1 said, looking down at the gathered beasts with an air of ancient wisdom. Back then, Luya once told me that the strength of beasts lies in the inheritance of bloodline power. But over generations, the purity of that bloodline weakens. Although rare cases of atavism can occur, overall, the strength of the beast clan has undeniably been diminishing. At the mention of Senior Luya, Shu Ke's eyes lit up, and he listened intently. Meanwhile, our opponents, humans, have grown stronger through generations of learning and accumulation. Cultivation methods, talismans, tools, formation, elixirs. Their sources of power are things that can be passed down through generations. The gap continues to widen. What, then, lies in the future for the beast clans? I thought about this question for 3 days and nights, but still found no answer. Forcing those without brains to learn alchemy or artifact refining. Even I couldn't achieve that. If lying around, eating, drinking, and resting makes them stronger, why would they strive for anything else? This is the beast clan's dilemma. Although there may be some exceptional individuals, it can't change the entire clan's ecology. As though he were explaining to Shu Ke and Li Fan, or perhaps just talking to himself, Emperor 1 continued. So, you plan to turn beasts into humans? Like what you're doing now? Shu Ke asked, astonished at the realization. Li Fan's feathers ruffled slightly, sensing a chill. Yes, and no. De shook his head, then nodded. As the leader of all beasts, I must consider the future of the entire beast clan, not just act based on personal preferences. The childlike Emperor One gestured to the 10,000 beast gathering below. That other version of me has decided to lead the beasts in fleeing Xuanwang. Even though I have utmost confidence, I can't deny that this plan may fail. Even if there's only a minuscule chance, I have to account for it. I don't want the Beast Clan to be doomed by one decision, so I need an alternative plan. I understand. This is what my seniors often say, you need a backup plan for everything. Shu Kei said excitedly. No, you don't understand, Emperor One said bluntly. 2 options would spell self-destruction for such a vast clan. How many beasts would accept the plan of transforming into humans? Not many, that much is certain. Enforcing such an order would only bring harm to an already divided clan, so I need to carry this plan out in secret. Shu Kei scratched his head, looking perplexed. What are you trying to say? The more you explain, the more confusing it gets. Emperor One waved his hand, and suddenly, a lush tree appeared before them. At the tip of one of its branches, Shu Kei saw his own reflection. This is, he asked, puzzled. This is the future, Emperor One replied solemnly. One possible future. The fate of the Beast Clan is intertwined with you, Emperor One said, gazing at the small Shu Kei, his eyes filled with an ancient sadness. Shu Kei watched the tree's branches, each branch displaying different visions of the Beast Clan's future, some filled with blood and complete extinction, others thriving and recalling the grandeur of ancient times. There were scenes of beasts and humans coexisting in harmony, creating a glorious civilization, and others of desolation and ruin. An infinite future holds infinite possibilities. This means that no matter how slim a possibility may seem, under the concept of infinity, everything is bound to occur. As the leader of the clan, I must consider every possible outcome for the Beast Clan's fate. In that moment, Emperor One, despite his childlike form, spoke with a weight as heavy as mountains. This is my answer to Lu Ya's question. Humans may have infinite potential, but you are divided, unable to unite the clan's power, exhausting yourselves in endless internal conflict. During a catastrophe, humanity would suffer greatly. Even if they survive by chance, the odds of extinction increase as disasters accumulate over time. But for us beasts, it's different. As long as I exist, I'll think everything through for my kin. Though they may have individual thoughts, when it comes to life and death, they must follow my command. As long as I live, the Beast Clan won't face total extinction. If we can't compete with humans, we just have to outlast them until they destroy themselves. Emperor One's tone carried a hint of faint irony. Shu Kei frowned, wanting to retort, but found no suitable words. After a long pause, he finally asked, then how can you guarantee that you won't die before the Beast Clan's extinction? Emperor One gave Shu Kei a dark look but remained silent. An infinite future means infinite possibilities. As long as there's a sliver of chance, it means it will inevitably come to pass. In Li Fan's mind, the words Emperor One had just spoken echoed repeatedly. Possessing the truth ability, which allowed him nearly limitless resets, he understood the meaning of these words more profoundly than anyone else. Moreover, Li Fan's heart surged with emotion. He had a premonition that hidden within these words was an even deeper secret. Something related to his path of the future, or perhaps to the truth. Yet, it was as if he were gazing at flowers in the mist. Unable to see its entirety, Li Fan was lost in a storm of introspection, while the child Emperor One remained silent after finishing his statement. Shu Kei, under Emperor One's gaze, involuntarily shuddered and closed his mouth. The normally fearless Shu Kei now realized the precariousness of his earlier words and dared not ask any further. After a long silence, perhaps to break the awkwardness of the moment, he chuckled and changed the subject. Right, since you are the Emperor One, Shu Kei tapped his forehead as if just remembering and took out a vermilion wooden box, passing it over. This is from senior brother Lu Ya, who asked me to bring it here. He didn't specify who it's for, but since you're the one in charge, it's safe to say it should go to you. Shu Kei looked at Emperor One, somewhat relieved. What is this? Emperor One's gaze fell on the wooden box, and a hint of solemnity appeared on his small face. As he took the box, a dark glow flashed across his hand, instantly dispelling the seals placed upon it. Roar! A ferocious killing aura, laced with resentment and anger, burst out of the box, soaring into the sky. The murderous energy took shape, swirling into a violent tornado. An overpowering scent of blood erupted from within, sweeping across the surroundings like a shockwave. In the midst of this, the shadow of a ferocious beast seemed to emerge, roaring in fury. Caught off guard, Shu Kei fell to the ground in fright. And Li Fan, deep in thought, was also startled by the terrifying scene, his feathers standing on end, his body trembling instinctively as if facing a natural enemy. Fortunately, Emperor One's small hand formed an impenetrable cage, containing and sealing off the malicious aura. No matter how violently it struggled or attempted to escape, it couldn't break free. Even in death, that foul temper of yours hasn't changed. Emperor One scoffed, his hand emitting a faint black glow. Gradually, as if sensing Emperor One's presence, the fierce beast inside the box began to calm down. The roaring subsided until silence returned. It was only then that the still shaken Shu Ke and Li Fan got a clear view of the box's contents. Inside was the severed head of a fierce beast, eyes wide open and filled with hatred. Its surface was covered in cracks, like shattered porcelain, etched with battle scars. At the wound on the head, the flesh seemed to writhe, as though the beast hadn't yet fully died. Seeing what senior brother Luya had entrusted him to transport to the Nanming Beast Mountain, Shu Ke turned pale with fright. He hastily waved his hands in defense, exclaiming, "I didn't do it." The child Emperor One was stunned for a moment, then broke into a chuckle. "Relax, even if you claimed to have killed it, no one in the world would believe you. The Lord of Demon Beasts, known as the Unrivaled Emperor Two of Wrath, there aren't many who could kill him. You're certainly not among them." Emperor One's face showed no grief or rage, merely offering a faint explanation as he continued to scrutinize the head of Emperor Two of Wrath, as if searching for clues. Emperor Two of Wrath. Though relieved of suspicion, Shu Ke was even more alarmed. Swallowing hard, he muttered, "If he's number 2, then doesn't that make him stronger than Grandpa San Third? How did he end up like this?" Shu Ke couldn't help glancing at the head in the box, asking the question with difficulty. Li Fan was similarly shaken. From Emperor Yi's words, it seemed that this, Emperor Two of Wrath, was likely the strongest among the demon beasts, second only to Emperor One. In human cultivation terms, he would probably be on par with someone at the longevity realm. And now, he had been decapitated. Who could have done this? Considering that the box came from Luya of the beast-taming sect, and though Luya himself didn't possess the power to accomplish such a feat, he knew someone who could. Mr. Bai. In an instant, an unparalleled figure flashed in Li Fan's mind. Could it be him? Li Fan and Shu Ke exchanged a glance, seemingly thinking the same thing. While the two of them pieced together the perpetrator, Emperor One, too, seemed to discover something in the wounds on the head. A skilled warrior dies in battle. I warned you many times, yet you refused to listen. Now you suffer this fate, brought upon yourself. Emperor One's expression was stern, his voice cold as ice. From within the severed head of Emperor Two of Wrath, a faint, angry roar seemed to echo in defiance. "It's good you returned," Emperor One murmured mysteriously. Then something happened that sent chills down Shu Ke's spine. Emperor One placed his hand on the severed head of Emperor Two of Wrath. His small, white hand began to swell and distort, expanding in strange ways. Chunks of black, mud-like flesh oozed from his hand, covering and engulfing the beast's head. Instinctively, Shu Ke pulled Li Fan back several steps. They distanced themselves from the seemingly innocent child Emperor One. Within just a few breaths, the undulating black mass retracted. Emperor One returned to his innocent childlike form. The head of Emperor Two of Wrath was now gone. "Thank you for bringing this fool back. I won't let him go again for a few tens of thousands of years," Emperor One said seriously. Shu Ke scratched his head, at a loss for words. "I also understand Emperor the Third's intentions." Emperor One glanced at Shu Ke with a faint smile. Instead of reproach, he simply continued. His belly suddenly swelled, distending until it was several times larger than his childlike body, grotesquely so. Inside, something seemed to be forming, shifting restlessly within him. With a tearing sound, a round creature emerged from his body. "Take this little one back and give it to Luya. He'll know what to do." Back in his childlike form, Emperor One looked at Shu Ke, pausing a moment before speaking again. "This is your reward for delivering Emperor Two of Wrath. Additionally, I have something else to give you."